Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Pylon Show. It's me, Apoptosis. I'm back, and I'm once again your Apop hostess. Today, we're going to be discussing the relative power levels of all the StarCraft 2 units in the game. A tier list, if you will, some sort of ranking. But before we do that, let's go ahead and introduce our most wonderful guests. Joining me today, we have got the Terran and audio enthusiast, Mr. UpATreeZelda. Sal, how are you doing, buddy?
I went positive in my ladder session today, I think. So I'm doing good. Better than the other days in the last couple weeks.
The patch is treating you well.
You want to rearrange your tier list after that win streak?
No, hey, I was honest with my tier list, okay? I went by what I thought was most used and what I thought was pretty good. And a lot of Terran units are in S tier, okay? I wasn't biased.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Well, I'm excited to see. We're also, of course, joined in the left corner of the map here, Mr. Neuro Zerg, the Zensei himself. How are you doing, Neuro? I saw you were working on your tier list last night. How did that go?
It was good. You did poke fun at me because the first 4 units I put in S tier were Protoss units, and the first 3 I put in D tier were Zerg units.
Yeah.
It ended up evening out after that. I just went with the easy ones first. I did have a little bit of feedback with Scarlet in the chat too, so a couple of the units went up or down one category for that. But it was a fun exercise, and I think it's fairly helpful if you're trying to climb the ladder. Sometimes you just show up to the battle with a bunch of garbage, and the opponent's like, what is this? And they shoot it and it dies. And you feel like all the work that your drones did harvesting that stuff was in vain because you had bad units. So I think maybe this Pylon Show conversation can help people not make the bad units and make the good units.
Really, you've unmasked my true motive here is for me to just be able to figure out what are the good units, so I can just make those now. So yes, I'm hoping that is it, because I am notoriously known for making the bad units. But if only the bad units weren't so fun to make. Dang it, dude. We also, of course, are joined, last but not least, by Feardragon Ravi. How are you doing, buddy? Enjoying a bit of vacation, I hear.
Yeah, taking a bit of vacation time from work, enjoying myself, working on all sorts of cool stuff with like my overlays and everything. Apparently ranking all of the units in StarCraft for today's episode, which I just want to note. We got like our Terran representative here. We got our Zerg two Zerg representatives here. And I'm supposed to be the Protoss representative. I'm just like, what? I played Protoss because I think their units are pretty good. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be bringing Protoss bias on this one.
Well, we got you here. You're representing the entirety of IRE, so make sure you represent the Protoss interests well, my friend.
Gotta represent Ireland's, man.
Ireland's. Oh my gosh, that's pretty.
We do have 3 of the best players of each race here, so that should help people have confidence in the calls that we're making.
Wait, but Apop plays Zerg. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm kind of here as an intermediary. By no means am I the best Zerg player there is. That definitely goes to Neuro, of course.
That joke whooshed, but I meant that Ravi is not the best Protoss player. That was where I was going with that.
Well, Sal, when it comes to gambling, I mean, everyone has an even shot.
Yeah, it's true. All right, that's fair. Puncher's chance. Got it.
We had some pre-banter discussion that we had to curtail already, so this is going to be quite the episode, I'm sure. I'm very excited to see. Each of you have created your own tier list. How long did you guys spend in making it? Neuro, you went through it pretty quick. Do you know how long you spent making that list?
Felt like it was about 20 minutes. Hang on, I have the video. I actually made a video of this because any savvy internet entrepreneur is going to know that if you make a piece of content, you should be delivering it in like 18 different ways.
It's content. 100%.
32 minutes and 11 seconds.
Oh my God.
Okay. Nice. How about Sal, Ravi? How about you guys? Do you know roughly how long it took you to make the list?
20 minutes, probably. Same. Well, I mean...
What?
Okay.
Oh my God, are you guys sitting there with like contemplative desire meditating under the tree? Like, this took me 4 minutes.
I cannot wait
we
to
didn't
tell
just
you...
put the DT and S and every other unit in D, so yeah. We took a little bit of time, my guy.
I do want to know, all right, just, not to spoil too much, but like, How many units did you guys put in S, and how many did you put in D? Because my S and D are like pretty sparse.
I have a unit in S that I wish I could put both in S and D. And then I have 9 units in S.
Oh my god. Okay.
And then I have 1 unit in D.
Okay. Got it.
So I am not necessarily going to be super part of the discussion, I don't think. I did make a tier list as well a long time ago. I took 2.5 hours, and I made it with chicken. It took me a long time. We were also making it with chat, though, and we kind of went back and forth. I put 12 units in S tier, and then 2 units in D tier, and then 2 units in Broodlord tier, which is a special tier that I made.
Guess how many units I have in the S tier?
1?
7, because it also starts with S. Or
19.
6. 19?
What?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
It's a big S tier.
Jeez. That is massive.
That's big. Okay.
Wow.
All right. So you like StarCraft a lot, is what I'm saying, and you think all the units are pretty cool.
I think there's some very magnificent units in this game, yeah.
Nice. Perfect. Okay, I'm excited then to see what everybody put everywhere. So how do we start this? Like, do we all vote on whether or not?
Well, so I had one more question, and I think it's going to help us get into actually how we're going to make the list itself. But I didn't give you guys any sort of qualifiers, like, oh yeah, make your list based off of this. I just said go with your gut. What did you guys use as like why did you rank things the way that you ranked them? Neuro, what did you kind of use? Did you use like power level, usability in each matchup, easy to use? Like, what were you going for?
I gave units a plus if they were viable at the highest level, and if they were spammable at the highest level, and high-level players complain about them. So that gives them an S tier. If any unit is quite good, but it requires you to be a top-level player to get the max value from, I would give that a bit of a minus, because for a lot of players, if they make that unit, they're just going to kind of trip over themselves with it, and it's not going to get as much raw value. So that would be a minus. So it's like, how viable is it at the top level, and then minuses for if it's complicated to use.
Okay, so usable at the highest level, minus if it's complicated to use. All right, fair enough. Sal, how about you?
Okay, so my methodology was pretty straightforward. If it's used in all 3 matchups, it ended up in at least A, right? Okay, so there are some units that only end up in 2 matchups, or like they're only 1 matchup. So that would be like a good, maybe it's a perfectly good unit, it ends up in A as well, but it can't be S tier. An S tier unit, it's got to be good in every matchup. It's got to be used like quite prolifically. So then,
I like that.
if a unit is used in all 3 matchups and it also like perfectly fulfills the role that it's supposed to do and and excels at it, it's S. So like
Perfectly
if it's extremely
fulfills the role.
good at its role. So here's an example. I'll just give one spoiler example. So the Reaper is an A. And even though the Reaper isn't necessarily like a sick unit you can mass, you play it in all 3 matchups, and it perfectly serves the role as a scouting unit. It's A. But it's not S because you can't really, like, it doesn't scale, it doesn't, like, do much better, right? So, like, I think it's an A tier unit in that you will build one in most matchups. Right, and it scouts, but it may suffer like beyond that.
I like your qualifier that you have for usable in all 3 matchups. I think I think that's really important. I did the same thing when I made mine. I had Chicken Man again, who plays random, and so if I were just making the list, I would have definitely just gone from his Zerg mindset. But he's like, "Well, this is really good in PvT, dude." Or I'm like, "I don't know about that. Like, what do you mean?" Ravi, did you have any specific things that you were looking for when you're making your tier list, or just were you going alphabetically? You know, Stalker and S.
I did think about that, but I instead just decided I went with impact that a unit has in the game at any level of StarCraft. So like kind of summing it up and averaging it. So at the pro level, there's obviously some units that are really good, but like are utter garbage at like bottom level. But I think there's some units that are really good at like amateur level, and that aren't so great per level. So I kind of just took the average of that, like, impact unit had in, like, the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, the Disruptor is much better in the mid-level than it is at the high level, I think.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
specifically, that unit is much...
Oh,
even
okay,
though the
sure.
control on the Disruptor side is good, Terrans who can split make it much worse than at the low level where you could build 15 of them and just kill everybody.
Got it.
And
All right.
Yeah.
I like this. This. You guys had really different ways that you did. We're kind of making these lists, and I think putting them all together. I think we'll just take a little bit of everything, and just let your whatever bias that you have run wild
We'll
here.
just compromise,
Yeah, we'll compromise.
Bring up the unit and say where we all put it, and then we'll bitch about it for a little bit, and then put it somewhere, and that'll be how it gets there.
Okay, and I will specifically ask somebody where you put that unit, but feel free, everybody, to just let me know. And
Okay,
I'm assuming you're going to let me know where you put each of those. So, Cobra, I think we're ready to go to the tier list. I have it up on my screen, so it's probably different ordered than you guys did it, but let's just go ahead and start. The first one I have here is the Baneling.
Right.
Very, very. This is. I sense it already. It's going to be very arduous where we're going to put this one. Neuro, where did you put Baneling?
S. Easy S. Super easy S.
Okay. Anybody disagree? Or are we all an S?
No, that's an S.
It's not only a good unit. It's an entertaining unit. It's a crowd pleaser. It goes boom. Stuff dies suddenly. It rolls in. It's kind of cute when it rolls on the ground like a roly-poly. People love Banelings.
Big plus.
Baneling mines, Baneling drops, Baneling run-bys, Baneling busts. Everybody loves a Baneling. You can use it in all 3 matchups.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I put it in A, but
Easy.
I could see it going up to S.
Oh, that's an S tier unit.
I
Oh
thought
my
for
God.
sure everyone was going to hard slam this into S with no doubts. I
No
thought for
break.
sure.
You
With
just slapped that Baneling right in there, buddy.
Yeah.
What made you prevent it from putting it in S, Ravi, or did you just go, oh yeah, Baneling's good, A, and then
Okay, there are some situations where I feel like when you use Banelings, if you just try and like let them do their thing, they like. Do you know how many Banelings it takes to kill an Archon, for example? I've seen like this happen so many times.
like
where,
100, yeah.
Mid-level players or something are like A moving their Banelings in, and I think it's like 33 Banelings or something take to kill an Archon.
It's a huge amount.
Yeah, hold on. But that's like saying, like, hey, man, Marines are shit because you can't kill Colossus with them. It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, it has to have a weakness. It's not like you just...
I know. I'm not saying that it's like not... I'm okay with it being S tier. The things that just held me back were just that I think that there is a fair bit of room to like mess up with a Baneling, and there's also just times that like I think your opponent has a solution to the Baneling, and there's not really like a good response sometimes. Like your response
There is a
don't
response.
run the Banelings in. Like
No. The response is you just make like 100 more.
You pull a dark.
You pull a dart.
Fair.
You just make more of them, and
Yeah, you just make
easily.
more Banelings.
Okay,
Easy.
Yeah,
Okay.
whatever.
Easy.
If you're having
To be
issues with the
fair, though,
Banelings, you didn't make enough of them. That's
Apop,
the
to be
age-old
fair,
wisdom. Yeah.
While I know and I agree that is very true for Banelings, I think at least 40% of all of the units we see here, you could use that same logic.
Okay, all right, that's fair. You got me there. You've got me there. So this is something we didn't discuss. Does needing to have a little bit of micro, because this will come up with like Marine as well. If you don't micro
The less
Marines,
micro required, the better the unit
the
is.
better the unit.
It's not, of course, because that means that
Okay,
you have to
okay.
spend less of your time.
Less of
in
your
a game
time
of
doing
StarCraft,
anything.
right? It has to be that way because the game technically has an infinite skill cap, and as long as that's true, a unit is better the less you have to look at it.
I think there's 2 sides of it though, right? There's minimum micro requirement. It's like the bar for using the unit should be like low, but if you have high micro potential, that's also a plus.
Yeah, but that doesn't put it like that doesn't make the unit better or worse. That just makes it like harder or easier to use. Whether or not dark is
War Prism would be a great example of this. Like the fact that there's high micro potential makes the unit better. Blink Stalkers, like the fact that there is a lot of that makes it a better unit. But like the minimum bar for stalkers in this day and age, I mean, we're jumping ahead, but like, is kind of a like higher bar because you need to do that. Like the minimum bar for stalkers to be effective is higher.
You couldn't argue though that if the stalker was as good without any micro as it was when you microed, then the unit would be better than if you did have to micro.
Well, I think
not better in terms of like fun, but better in terms of would I want to build them versus another unit. Because then I could macro better or micro somewhere else or whatever.
What I'm getting from what Ravi is saying, I think I'm on the same page, is how much does it change how effective the unit is if you micro it well? So, like, you can't really micro an individual Zergling that much unless you're maybe doing a cheese or something like that. If you have just a giant battle happening, there's not much to be done. And so there's basically zero micro potential of the Zergling except for maybe some pre-splits or something like that. But as Stalker, yeah, you can do well. Okay,
yeah, you can do
it's just a general example. It's a general example.
No,
okay, I'm just going general example.
You could use the Zealot. It's okay. This is a Protoss representative.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. I was trying to bash my own race, but we'll do Zealot then. Right.
Bro,
there's almost nothing you can do afterwards.
Maybe you haven't had to deal with Bjorn's Reaper, but I have. Lings have to be microed. They will be killed if you do.
Okay.
And you have to individually micro them.
My point is how like in a large scale battle, how much can you micro an individual Zergling compared to like an individual Stalker? And I think that really can change up the way that works out.
It depends on who you are, because I've watched Raynor do that.
You think about them in value clumps, because what the Ling can do that many other units can't do is you box steal a chunk of them and send them around the map somewhere else, which I would call that like it's a play, it's a micro play. You ended up moving the units in a different capacity.
Sure, I'm not disagreeing necessarily. I'm just saying, like, those are things we could think about. Is the ability to be highly microed desirable, or is that a negative for that?
Let me put it this way, because I agree with what Apop is saying. Like, I think the specific example, like aside and everything, it's just the idea that, like, I know Sal was saying, for example, if you have a unit that just functions on its own, that's always better because then you can focus your attention elsewhere. But there are times where, like, if you can get 5x or 10x value out of the unit because there's micro potential, when you do have the attention to spare, there's not something else you'd rather be focusing on. Like, this isn't about, let me send off some other drop and micro something, or have my workers mine like 0.001% fast or something. It's like, this is the main army engagement. I would prefer to have units that have high micro potential when I can afford to do it. But that's
never true in StarCraft.
What?
That's never true. It's always true that you could be doing more in a game of StarCraft. It's always true.
Yeah, and sometimes that more is with the unit that you're doing the direct engagement with.
Sure, but you prioritize that unit because it can do more. But if it could do that without you looking, it would be objectively better for you as the player.
Sure, but we're not talking about that. We're saying this in relation to all the rest of the units in StarCraft, not in relation to a hypothetical unit that doesn't
this is why there
exist.
are tiers and not an ordered numbering system. Like, there is a scale on which, like, if it's S tier, then even the lowest level to the highest level can still get a lot out of Banelings.
Okay.
So, like,
I looked at this tier list as comparing units to each other, not comparing it to a infinite potential of what the unit could have been.
No, I mean, the Baneling is S because it's super cost efficient and crazy, like, as far as what the unit itself can do. But whether or not, like, it, isn't more
why are we
microable
arguing
than
this much when we all said okay?
we all agree on it. I don't know why the hell we're arguing.
Baneling is S tier next.
I told you Baneling was going to be a contentious one. It was going to open the floodgates. Yeah,
we all
it's
agreed.
I think that what happened is we were trying to just nail down exactly why we thought it was S.
Ravi was trying to be a little bit of a contrarian and put it in A. Okay, he wanted to be fancy, but the ghost of Artosis came in and slapped him and said, "Get the Baneling's name out your fucking mouth."
Oh my god!
Keck W.
Oh jeez. Okay, we will move on. The next one I have is Carrier. UpATree, where did you put Carrier?
So the Carrier, I would like to put it in D and S. Is that possible?
Oh man, no.
Can we put it in both? Because the carrier goes from being the worst unit ever to the best unit ever once you have a lot of them. Right? No one wants 3 carriers. You give me 24 carriers and we're having a field day.
Can I go back to your previous point of reasoning, Sal? Your previous point of it's a unit that you don't need to micro and it takes
You don't need to do shit.
The carrier is the pinnacle of this. If there's an amount of not needing to pay attention to your army and it's still winning, the carrier is the king.
However, you have to concede that they're really shit if you only have a couple of them. And like...
Well... Yeah, that's
so
true of a lot of units, though, as well, right?
Your economy is shit if you only have a couple workers.
Sorry, did I say it that way? I meant, unless you have a lot of them. Like, they go from being like, oh, I have 10, that's okay, to like, or like, not even good. It's like 10 is bad, and then you have like 12, and you're like, okay, now we're rolling.
It's the fact that combined with the fact that carriers take so long to build. It's like, it's because there is such a large opening where you only have a few, and you're just like... I really hope I don't die for the next couple of minutes, because that's how long it's going to take me to get my next few. Yeah.
Yeah,
that's
so I'm willing to concede to put it wherever you guys want, because I can't decide if it should S or D. I don't know.
Okay, I put it in A.
S.
I put it in A. I put it in A as well.
And I actually agree with most of what Sal was saying, and I think that enough is just like the fact that going for carriers leaves you as vulnerable as it does, like... That's where I was kind of like, it's not S tier, but it's like...
Objection.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what's called an unsafe build. If you're rushing carriers on 2 base, you are doing something that is, by definition, unsafe, and you are trying to make an ultra at 2 base economy. It is an unwise decision, so if someone hits a timing and kills you, it's not because carriers are a weak unit. It's because you made carriers at the wrong time.
But, okay.
I have another question. Are they played in PvP ever?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. I don't know.
They are. It's like, okay, this is PvP is actually a great example of it, where it's not like that there's this build order. I mean, there are builders who will go for like fast sky toss and stuff in PvP, but like it's not that there's just this build order you try and get to and you get up to carriers and stuff. It's like a transition point, and you... Like, to Nero's credit, yes, like, there are timing attacks and, like, there are ways that you can do it extra greedy and stuff, and you can be falter or something. But I think that, like, in PvP as a great example, it's, a lot of it is just about, like, you have to do something extra to buy time for yourself. You can't just sit back. You're, like, reliant on a lot of other things to go well in order to get out enough carriers to, like, dominate.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm willing to put it wherever, because like I couldn't decide if it was horrible or amazing.
It's so good against Zerg. This is also a point of bias, right? I have a Zerg bias. I'll just be upfront about that. If you're browsing Neuro news, there's going to be a Zerg slant to everything. So
yeah,
the carrier has been oppressive to the Zergs for years at this point, and there's no way I can't put it in S tier, at least for myself. Maybe the average of our group is an A, but let it be known to the court and the audience that I would put this firmly in S tier. It is so absurdly easy to use. There are players with 200 less APM than the Zerg who are just triumphant as fuck with carriers and a few storms.
Yeah.
Hey, Neuro. Hey, Neuro, that's how I feel about spore crawlers. You don't micro spore crawlers for shit. You win plenty of those air versus air wars.
So you're saying that the reaction you should have to the Protoss player who fell asleep while playing Skytoss is to micro his spore crawlers harder?
No, I'm saying spore crawlers require as much micro as the carriers, and they win plenty of fights in those exact type of engagements that you're talking about.
Right now, Neuro's face is this tiny little pixel on my screen, but I can see this scrunched up, bewildered ass expression on his face.
I'm trying to stack up the times that I've seen carriers go purge a person's entire army and bases versus how many times a spore has gone and do that. And I'm just coming up empty. I've seen spores sit at home, and I've seen them like uproot and waddle a little bit and then root somewhere else.
But no.
Do you
not?
Do you hotkey your spores to attack carriers, or do you just let them go wild? Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure.
My point is not that I think spore crawlers are S tier. I'm saying all the things that you described a carrier of doing and why it was S tier, is the same qualities that a Spore Crawler has. Like, I agree, carriers are obviously a lot better than Spore Crawler. No disagreements on that. I'm just saying, just the fact that it doesn't need to be microed and can like decimate the units that it was designed to go kill, I don't think is a good reason to be S tier.
But wait. I want the unit that auto plays. Isn't that great?
Is that the only criteria?
When I'm 35.
Is that the only criteria for you?
No, it's not the only criteria, but it reaches max potential with like little to no effort. That's like great, and it also is good at the high, like even at the highest level. It's played apparently in all 3 matchups.
I'm not disagreeing. If you get to 12 carriers, that's great, but like it is still about getting to 12 carriers, right?
I mean,
y'all haven't been 2 base carrier rushed, I see, in PvZ, which is a thing for sure. 2 carriers, even at like 8 minutes in the game, it can screw up.
Listen, where are we saying? It's either S or it's A.
Well, we can go S. I think a lot of people. I think the general consensus seems to be S. Sal, I don't know what to do with your S or
I put
D.
it in S,
I'm not
but
quite sure.
I put it in S.
I put it in A.
So.
I'm not really a part of this, though. Robbie put it in A. I don't feel like he's hard stuck on A only. It is made in all 3 matchups. It is a very good unit.
Can we coin flip it? Can you just Google coin flip?
Yeah. No, you know what? Let's just put it in S, because I'm realizing also, I talked with... When I asked you guys about how many units you put in S versus like... and like D versus the other ones, I had like 4 or 5 units in S. To me, S is like, these are some of the greatest units that exist in the game in like any viable circumstance. If you have it, it just improves the game and like your situation.
I see.
So like, I think I had a different definition of S, and that's why I'm being stingy about like the Baneling and the carrier.
I have most of the units in A.
Okay, that's fair.
Carrier is probably my last controversial pick for this, because I only
We're getting them out of the way. All right, we'll move on to the next one. What is the next Carrier and S for now. The next one is Probe. Ravi, where did you put the Probe?
I put Probe as S tier. Like, the fact that you can win games off of it, it's great for harassment. It has the potential to, like, single-handedly hide, like, a lot of tech and stuff. The fact that it doesn't have to mine while it's building things and can just, like, pop things down and, like, run off, including that's really helpful for, like, proxies and stuff like that. You can, like, do a proxy and scout with the same worker. Like, I think Probe is just, like, S-tier worker.
Yeah, okay. I have it as A.
And, I have it as all right. A. All right. Neuro, where'd you put it?
I had it as S. One thing that I would hope would be helpful to the viewers and people who maybe aren't a pro level player or even a Masters Plus player is that workers are super good units. They're super duper good units. And if you want to improve as a player, making more of whatever your worker unit is, it's going to make you go up in the ladder. So Probe is S tier. I put all the workers in S tier just for that alone. The value over time, I think it would be really cool. You know, we have like the kill count on units. If you had the resources mined of a worker, that would blow people's minds of like how valuable those first workers that you have are and how much work they do over the course of the game.
That would be sick.
Yeah, I mean, where do you think, Apop? Go.
I put Probe in S as well for pretty much the same reasons that Ravi did, because it does regen shields on its own. You only need to pull one worker off of the line to make like infinite buildings. So you don't have to pull like one per. You don't lose it like you do a drone. It has better harassment potential seemingly, and it can one probe can single-handedly potentially win you a game with proxies or cannon rush or something like that. I don't think there's another worker that could possibly do that.
Well, I mean, the SCV is literally an army unit. So
that's okay. Well, that's true.
Like the SCV, I put the SCV above it in S because the SCV is just like, dude, there was an entire period of StarCraft. Every single game was an SCV pull, and it was like half your army is workers. So
that's fair.
Yeah, for the fact that it kind of serves dual purpose, I put it above. But I do understand that. I do see that the Probe could be S. Like I wouldn't be against putting it S. I hadn't really considered like the proxy or the cannon rush thing. I would have considered those to be like separate units. But if you're thinking about like what the Probe can accomplish, it can do a lot. I wouldn't be against putting it S.
It can block bases with very low effort as well, like putting a pylon down.
Yeah.
I think for the highest level of play, it's not used super often, but even in GM and ladder, it happens pretty often, and it makes the game a lot more mechanically difficult for the player whose base was blocked, where they have to now take a third instead of a natural as their next base.
Yeah,
Probe
that's
S.
a lot of PvP.
Probe and S. Got it. Next one, we've got Disruptor. Neuro, where did you put Disruptor?
Let me double check. I put the Disruptor in B tier.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
B.
B
Okay.
tier mainly because from a Zerg's perspective, it's only scary if you make a big clump of army and you don't pre-split anything. You can just pivot into melee-focused army like a bunch of Ling Bane. Lings are faster than the Nova, and obviously area units can shoot these and they can't do anything about it. So it's a counterable unit, unlike the carrier feels a lot of times. It definitely has its moments where it's a very good unit and players can use it well. But yeah, it doesn't feel like uncounterable like the S tier units feel.
Okay. Sal, Ravi, where'd you put
Hey,
it?
I put it in A because it can one-shot all my things. I don't like that.
I don't like that.
From 13 fucking range away. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's played in all three matches. I think it's played less in PvZ. But I don't know about that. I think you see them in most PvZs. I don't know.
Depends, but yeah, they're not uncommon to see.
Yeah.
It's a
you'll
common
see them.
response to like
They're played in all
lurkers
three.
sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're played in all three, and it's strong. And I think that it has a lot of utility too. Like you can get disruptive harassment, right? You have like a bunch of ways to play it. I think it has a lot more weaknesses, and I don't think it scales like to every phase like some of the S tier units do. So I think A is kind of A is kind of where it can go. The maximum potential of a disruptor is not as high, especially if your opponent, like if you consider that you play with a disruptor as best you can, and your opponent plays with their army the best they can, the disruptor is actually not a very good unit.
No.
It's kind of actually only good if your opponent specifically has like missed what's going on or missed controls.
I think the Disruptor really neatly strikes that human tendency to play the little kid soccer game of StarCraft, where you have all of your army either with an F2 or in one control group, and you're just running at them when you feel like that you can take a fight, and it punishes that super, super hard. So I would guess a lot of players might feel like it's a higher tier unit than that if they're playing the game that way. But if you even just like half and half your army and harass two places, the Disruptor just feels like a terrible
apart.
unit.
If your opponent's playing their best, the unit's worse.
So I fully agree, and I think like there's obviously like the big argument for anything below like Masters 1, honestly. You will see like disruptors pull off insane comebacks just because like it's like that's a whole thing. I think I don't even need to go into that. I think at the pro level, the one thing that I think didn't get addressed as much is I think disruptors are an extremely strong tool for offensive play, where if a player is able to get into a like somewhat advantageous offensive position,
you can just push it.
You can just deny your opponent from really being able to engage into you. Like you can cover retreats, you can prevent your opponent from moving in at like advantageous angles. Like it slows down your opponent so much. And it does take a lot of like micro and effort and everything to do, and you have to have like 5 or 6 disruptors to do it well. But like you see it a lot, especially in PvP, and I think sometimes you do see it like a bit more in PvT and stuff. But it's just like I think it's so good at solidifying good positioning if you already have it. Like if you're able to do that on the offensive, disruptors can be so good even at the pro level play.
But to go back to kind of what we said before, is a unit that is worthless without any micro. So like literally you must micro it in order for it to do anything.
I agree on the general principle that a unit that requires less micro is like better. But like I would never, granted I didn't put Disruptor in S tier, I put in A tier also. But like I wouldn't say a unit that requires micro can't be S tier in my book.
I think it goes both ways, right? Like if your unit requires less, it's not about whether or not the unit requires more micro, in my opinion anyway, to be better. It's whether or not, like, if the unit is played at its best and your opponent plays at their best, like, does that actually make the unit worse? In the case of the carrier, no, I don't think it does. The carrier is just as good, whether or not your opponent's playing out of their goddamn mind or they're playing horribly. The carrier's sick, right? But the Disruptor specifically, if your opponent dodges all the Novas, it's garbage.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if they just manage to never get hit,
Yeah.
right? It's worthless. So that's what kind of stops it from being, like, super, super, super sick, I think, is the fact that its value kind of goes down if your opponent is better.
Okay, so A or B? We got B from Neuro, we got A from Sal and Ravi. Where are you guys comfortable with it? I put it in S because all the Disruptors... Yeah.
I argued really hard to put Barrier in S tier, so I will defer to the group.
Yeah, I'll take
for
the
A.
A. Yeah.
We'll go A. A seems fair, and I recognize that all the Disruptors I see blow up my entire army because I am a little kid playing soccer. Sounds good. Next up, we have the Corruptor. Ravi, where'd you put Corruptor?
C, because it begins with the word C.
Okay, fantastic. Sal, where'd you put Corruptor?
What, the Corruptor?
Mm-hmm.
I put it in B, I think.
B.
I'm looking
Okay.
for it. Yeah, I mean, it's annoying. And it's played in all the matchups, right? Except maybe ZVZ? Is it played in ZVZ?
You seldomly see it in ZVZ, but
yeah,
it's a blue moon.
You know, watch that Chinese ZVZ to see it.
Okay, Neuro, where'd you put Corruptor? This one's kind of going all over the place.
I put it in B tier. It's it's a unit that you have to make, and they have pretty good health and damage versus massive units for their value. But the reason I don't put it higher is because of all the Crushing Sadness ZVP games that I have, where you make the Corruptors to fight the carriers, and then they pivot back into ground, and you have like 40 dead supply. That's really tragic.
So they're okay.
It just feels kind of like a unit that you don't know if you really want. Like, who was it that was quoted with saying it's a unit you never really want to build? I can't remember who.
You don't want to build it for its own sake. You build it in response to them making
because you have to.
But like you don't want to build them. Like they're just not. Like,
that's why I put it in C tier, because I'm like, it's not D tier. Like, it has a purpose. It does accomplish that purpose, but it's really not something like if you had a choice of what your game would look
anything
like,
else first.
Yeah,
they did get a speed buff a while back that does make them feel better than they did before. I think their acceleration
they're
and
very
their
good against Terran for that.
And also, if you have just like that overwhelming number, like against someone who's hard doubling down, like I'm thinking of like Sky Toss and stuff. When you just hit like the overwhelming number, it's like you just kind of instantly win the game. Like when they are in the situation that you want to have them, like they do their job really well. That's fair. So I'd be okay with upgrading it from C to B.
Okay, seems like a pretty unanimous B. I think I put it in A myself because it's very good at the job that it's made for. But you are definitely correct. It's very unipurpose. It has one thing that it can do really well, and it does that pretty decently. Okay, sweet. So Corruptor in B. Sounds good. Cyclone. Sal, where'd you put Cyclone?
B.
Okay.
I put it in B. I mean, it's like played only in one case in I guess if you play no one really plays this much anymore, like the Hellion Cyclone Battle Mech. Like the only other time you ever build them is against Ravager all-ins.
Okay.
Like, and then TVT, you only really build them in like very niche build orders or just one of them to defend some stuff early.
You ever make them versus Protoss?
Yeah. Like against Stargate sometimes, but like no. So like
very
that's
fringe.
The thing is, they're very like there's almost always something else you could build that might be just as good. And even when you do build them, you're kind of reluctantly build
the
them.
Corruptor of Terran.
Yeah, they're just not really that good. But like some people do play them more seriously, and like they can do pretty good. Like if you do the version with, I think I would have put them higher pre Proxy Voider nerf too, because you can use them very well to defend that particular build with the Meg field. So some people will do the Meg field where they like snipe your CC as it's like trying to land on the third or like whatever it is. But like it always feels like the Cyclone is like you're only taking advantage of your opponent's mistakes, and even then, like even an opponent slightly better than you can still like fall if you just don't, be silly with your units or get your tanks like caught on siege or something. It just doesn't feel like a unit I'd ever really want to build unless it solves a very niche small case.
Okay.
So
B. Okay. So Ravi and Neuro, where did you put them?
I put it in A. I've seen some Terrans who can just like spam them and they're pretty good with the battle mech style, and it feels kind of silly that as they spam more of them, it just gets better and better for them. And they feel a lot easier to use than Bio, so I gave them a plus for ease of use compared to like needing to stem and pre-split Bio. You can kind of just run up, get in range of stuff so the auto lock happens and then drive away, and you take a really good value trade for that. So I think they're pretty noob friendly in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
They're fairly chonky. They do well against mutas.
Okay.
Yeah. I put it in B. Honestly, actually, for a lot of the reasons, I think I rated it a little bit higher in B than Sal did. I probably was more along the lines of what Neuro was saying, where I think it can be an effective unit. I think it also does have even just having a single Cyclone can have a lot of utility. Like, you're talking about TVP and how it doesn't get used and stuff, and I'm thinking about the safety Cyclone that just keeps you alive and solidifies you against a lot of different stuff like oracles and warp prisms and random other things coming along, or if there's a proxy or something. It's actually pretty great to have in TVT, and is the defining moment when the first Cyclone pops out, when the Reaper Hellion stuff just kind of suddenly has to take more of a back seat. The TVZ, I think it does get some use. It's not extreme use or anything, but I think it's a really good utility unit. I put in B. I could see it being an A or B.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife when what you really wanted was a hatchet or a screwdriver or literally any of the actual tools on the Swiss Army knife, but all you had on hand was a Swiss Army knife. You're
so it's not the best at anything, but it's kind of good at everything.
It can kind of serve the role, but I wouldn't use it unless I actually wasn't sure. I guess that's actually the reason that it's decent and played. If you're not 100% sure what you're playing against yet, it's good because it's strong against single target, and it's pretty mobile, and it can be repaired, and it serves that role. If you're not 100%, if you can't decide, you don't want to build a tank if they're going Banshee or something like that. Cyclone's good because it shoots Banshees. That's sick, right? They have a bunch of right. But there are definitely moments where you're I'd rather spend this gas on something else. Anything else, actually.
There's one other thing we haven't really talked about, which I don't know. I kind of factor this in a little bit. I don't know if you guys would, but I like units where you can basically show a skill difference. If you have a Cyclone and you can kind of just outplay your opponents with them. If you're playing someone that's worse, I've seen so many times, especially in below, GM level and stuff. If you're playing someone worse than you, you can literally just get massive advantages off of the fact that you're better than them.
Cyclone alone, yeah.
It's I would say it's kind of similar to how sometimes Disruptor or something versus Zealot. If I'm, what? Let's be real. Are Astrea Zealots really that much better than my Zealots?
Yeah. But that's why the Zealots.
But his adepts are.
His adepts. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure there are Silver League players that have better adept control than I have. So.
Yeah, I'm fine with the.
I'm good with
B tier.
Yeah, B.
Yeah,
I'm happy.
Okay, we'll put it in B. Seems like I also put it in B minus. I made another 3 tiers because I needed some minuses, so I put it
because you spent
if there was a low. I spent a really long time. Yeah, if there was a low end of B, that's where I put Cyclone, because if basically what Sal was saying, where it's just it's kind of okay at everything, but it's never the good
the
unit
tool you want, man.
Never the thing you exactly want. Yeah. Okay, all right. So B. Next up we have the drone. Ravi, where'd you put drones?
I put it in C tier. I think it's the worst of the worker units.
Wow.
I think that it is used for combat basically defensively, and Zerg players have to be very good with using them so they can help defend against stuff. But I think of all the workers, they're definitely the least useful. I saw Neuro's look of puzzlement and stuff. And I'll say I don't factor in the rate at which you're mining with them or any of that stuff. I'm thinking about all of the other utility. I'm like, the fact that you have to sacrifice the worker to do it, the fact that, like, you don't really, like, have you ever, any time that a drone is fighting in an army, think about all the times you end up seeing a drone fight. It's like, I'm fighting into Stim Marines. I'm fighting into Adepts.
That's
I'm
like when you know the
into
game is over.
Zealots.
When the drone,
I'm fighting into Hellions. Like, drones are never put in a situation where they actually want to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah. I put it B.
Okay.
I put it B.
Okay.
Because I put the SCV as S, and then I put the probe as A, and then I put the drone as C, because it's just clearly, like, I mean, even how sneaky can you be with a drone? Like, you can be kind of sneaky, but not as sneaky as a probe. How jacked is the drone? It's not as jacked as an SCV. Nope. It's like, it's just worse than all the other things aside from mining, right? That you do with workers, and in order to build anything, they die. Like, how sick is that? It's not sick at all. It sucks. Like,
okay, Neuro, what's your rebuttal? Do you have any? Are you being swayed?
If we don't have drones, we don't have shit. Drone is the unit that allows us to swarm, by definition. And we can make drones. This is another thing that wasn't included with the tier list, but is really important for how Zerg works. Is the larva mechanic means that Zerg can explode up to like 70 to 80 workers faster than Protoss and Terran, and that's how Zerg can win.
But is that so?
That
so
power
this is the thing. Is that a consequence of the larva or the drone? Because I don't. Because
it's a consequence of the larva, but the larva is not in the conversation, and I feel like that weakens the drone's score.
Oh, the larva should be, and it should be S. Right.
Okay, I don't think larva's in this. I will be honest with you.
It's a unit. You can target it with your Cyclone.
Fair enough.
You know, it's a unit.
Let it be known that the larva is S.
Okay.
The larva is S. Where is the broodling in this?
Where is the broodling? Sorry, guys.
Where's my E tier?
I agree with what Sal is saying, that it's not as dangerous as the other two workers. I have a personal affection toward drones because I feel like making more of them is what got me like up to the skill that I have, and the reason why I'm not as good as other Zerg players is because they can make more drones in more situations and defend them. But I think A tier could be a compromise I would be willing to make.
I think it's accepted that, well, for basically every race, unless you're doing some immediate cheese, you have to make more of that unit in order to win, or to macro, right? Like, that's just required. That's something you can say of the probe and the drone and the SCV, so you can almost just take that out of the equation, since that's just a factor for every race. And so the way that I looked at drone was kind of the same way that Sal did, where, okay, let me look at its properties compared to the other ones. It does have the ability to blink out of existence from harass, which is kind of nice for a little bit, and you can get it back. So that is kind of it softens the weakness of having to die for a structure. You do not have to build as many structures. That's not necessarily something that the drone does, but it's just a factor of the Zerg. I don't have to build 10 spawning pools to make lings. I only got to make the one and then hatcheries. But I agree that needing to sacrifice a worker unit in order to make any structure is a pretty harsh and steep negative for it. I think I put drone in like B or something like that.
Yeah, I think B is fair for it, to be honest. And that kind of averages out for what Neuro wants with A and Ravi wants with C.
I wanted S, but
he wants S.
Sorry. Yeah.
You put all the work as an S, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I wanted it in D, but I wanted to save D for the truly abhorrent units.
If you want to put it in B tier, you can, but I'll remember you did that.
All right, I'm going to put it in.
But I don't see it either.
Yeah,
I just want to say that Cobra Venom ran a poll that had exactly one vote, and it was one vote for C tier.
Oh, wait, now that with the refresh is there. Okay, so I'm gonna vote B.
Refresh your page.
Okay, you have to refresh.
And it's about the next one, so we'll move on to the next one already. Your complaints have been noted, Neuro.
Oh wait, no. I voted wrong because I was voting for the drone. Where did we put the drone?
We put the drone in B.
Okay, good. All right.
Next up though is Ghost. And Neuro, where did you put Ghost?
The Ghost is a unit that, to give some history, it wasn't always this lauded, and it was based on a discovery that some Terrans made. I'm not sure who did it, but now basically any Diamond Plus Terran is probably aware of this. And it's known as the rapid-fire snipe technique.
Yeah.
And many Terrans, they wept, and the tears are countless of these Terran players of dying to Ultras and Broodlords and Vipers, oh my. But then the rapid-fire snipe technique was passed around, and they realized they just need to wave their cursor on the screen a little bit, and it just erases the most expensive and dangerous of the Zerg units with your invisible ghosts. And ever since then, teching into tier 3 for Zerg is kind of like, do I really want to do this? Because if they have ghosts, I have to go back into Ling Bane. So it's a unit that really causes you to have to redirect your whole game plan. It is super, super, super duper good. Not to mention that they can nuke bases and kill stuff. Holy fuck. The ghost is super S.
Neuro speaking from trauma. S. It's S. God, that.
I played against. I don't remember what tournament it was with you, Sal. It was like the streamer invitational from So Focused or something.
Yeah, it was So Focused.
It was on Romanticide, and I remember like you were just like, "What the fuck do you do?"
I threw so many maxed out armies into you, and you're just like.
That was like right after I had discovered rapid fire snipe, and I remember playing that game and just laughing hysterically at how much of my life I'd wasted not worshiping at the altar of the ghost,
at the feet of the ghost.
Oh my god, I couldn't believe myself.
It's so good.
Jesus.
S tier.
Okay,
Absolutely.
so Neuro is a S tier solidly and is unbudgingly yes.
Yeah.
Sal, where did you put it?
S.
Okay.
So, this is the only unit I think that I put in S that you really only build in 2 matchups, not all 3. But they're so fucking good in those 2 matchups. Like, they're so good. In TVP, the Ghost is hilariously good. You can reduce an entire army, their cumulative HP by half. And they can do fucking nothing to stop you from doing that. There is so little. Like, you can be like, oh, they can disrupt yourself. Fuck off. You can EMP the shit out of them, and it's fantastic. And then in TVZ, you get like 12, 15 of them, and the Zerg's mauling. They're like, no, don't. And then you just, and everything just dies. High level, low level, it's all there. The Ghost is amazing. But in TVT, if you build a ghost, I'm asking you why the hell you're like why are you not in silver? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, I don't know what you're doing, right? Like, you're trying either a ghost drop because you saw Ruff play it, or you're like actually gold. You're gold. Okay. So like in 2 matchups, the ghost is insanity. Yeah. And in the other matchup, it's like if you build a ghost, I'm like, oh, okay. So I start talking to chat. I like barely look at the screen anymore. Like, I don't really, it's like, oh, ghost, okay. You know? It's literally like not very good. And let's not even get into the combination that is the nuke with the ghost. Because like how they're just the amount of workers you can kill because of a dot on the screen is so good. It just creates utter chaos for like a small investment pretty much. It's actually so good, and yeah, Smile in chat's definitely correct with saying that it's definitely a unit that gets more value, and not only is it a better unit, the more better unit, the better you are. There's not a lot that your opponent can do if they're better to stop you from being able to use that unit even better, right? Like the Ghost, it's not like the Disruptor where how good you are, your opponent being better actually reduces its value. Like the Ghost just gets better. And at worst, it's even. It's even. Like it's even. Just a good unit, yeah.
All right, Ravi, how about you? Are you putting it in S as well, or where'd you put it?
I also put it as S tier, and I just want to say, if you go back legitimately 10 years ago to 2012, you could find some state of the games. Those Terran players are whining like, oh, the freaking High Templar in Storm is just so unfair. They just do this splash damage, just point and click. And it does this damage over time to all my Marines. I can't do anything about it. Like,
yeah.
And a bunch of Protoss players, I think Jeff was one of them, was just like, you just click the EMP and you do all the damage instantaneously also in as wide of a radius. Like, how is no one talking about this?
Well,
I would like to see the DPS of that. So you have a full chunky Protoss army and you EMP that.
Yeah.
How much damage of the shield
damage
per
is that?
second
A
did you
lot.
just do?
So, in all fairness, the Ghost was A tier before the EMP buff. But with the EMP
What was the buff?
you need they
was the radius
increased
buff.
the radius of the EMP,
Okay.
But like,
and with an upgrade, which is just so good.
it just
really is.
frustrates me so much that Terran players were like, literally until I want to say like 3-4 years ago, we're just like, no, just Ghosts really aren't that good. They just frankly don't do that much. And I mean, feedback just makes them completely useless.
Well,
they are
no, but
utterly invaluable, or like provide zero value to Terran. I don't even know why you would make it.
it's
in the
not
matchup,
really
frankly.
a fair comparison for the time, because with a smaller range on EMP, because it is a projectile, right? Feedback is instant. So like when the
EMP still outranged feedback.
yeah,
even
but by
before the
not a
buff.
lot. So like you
But not
always
by a
got
lot.
the feedback. Yeah,
so you would get the EMP off,
but you
not
also
by
get
a
the
lot.
feedback. No, you also get the feedback. You get both. At best case scenario for
Oh
the
no!
Terran,
So they
you
fed
get
back
both.
the Ghost after it EMP'd. Oh no! My life
Yeah.
is ruined.
But then it's just one single unit versus one single unit. So if I had like, if that Ghost had 75%
That's true.
energy,
No,
right?
I'm so
Then-
glad you brought that up, because it is one unit versus one unit. And if the
Yeah.
High Templar is feedbacking, it's not storming. If the Ghost is EMPing, it's also doing the damage and removing the rest
Yeah,
of the
but they
energy on the High
nerf
Templar.
feedback beyond that too. Like if I had a full energy Ghost, now my Ghost dies. Whereas now it does not. Like sure, like it
I was gonna ask
feedbacks,
that, actually.
it tickles,
Yeah.
and the Ghost is
That's
better
fair.
now because now I can get the EMP and you can't feedback. All I'm saying is that back then they had more of a case.
That's
But now the
true
Ghost is
in
ridiculous.
In the situation where the feedback got off before the Ghost actually got an EMP off or sent out an EMP. But in the days where it like feedback would happen and the EMP shot out, EMP had a higher range, so you could fire it off, hit the army, and hit the High Templar. The feedback would go off afterwards, and you'd be feedbacking a Ghost that didn't have that much energy and it wouldn't die.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it was still a little ridiculous, but like if you're comparing it to now, which is kind of what we're doing.
Now it's
Like
now, it's
now
absurd,
the
of course.
Ghost literally just covers a blanket over the entire Protoss army so you can lay it to sleep. Like
Yeah. No,
it's really
I'm in full agreement with
really
you on
good,
that
dude.
now.
Like it's
I just
really
think
good
it's-
now.
I just think it's hilarious that
Yeah,
it took
I
like
mean-
8 or 9 years without change for Terran players to be like, oh wait,
Well,
Ghost unit's really good.
but look at how long it took for Zerg players to figure out Lurkers were actually a good unit. Like the unit was around for so long, and it even
I
had
fully
adaptive
agree.
talents, right? Like
And Protoss had the same thing. Protoss does the same thing. Like every race does the same thing.
how
this
long was DT Blink laughed at before someone figured out you could YOLO them onto planetaries and
They
blink
buffed
them out of
Lurker
existence?
range. The Lurker wasn't quite as good until they buffed
Yeah,
the max range.
range is
That's
the big
true.
thing for them.
That was when it really became strong, I think.
But even now, even when the Lurker burrow speed was fast, the range is obviously makes it better, but the burrow speed makes it good too. Like in a separate situation where you're
My
chasing units
favorite
down.
example for Zerg, if we want to go into that, is the Swarm host, because people don't remember the first year and a half of Heart of the Swarm, where players are just like, yeah, Swarm host is okay, but it's like really not that great. And I literally saw like 2 Zerg players that were actually trying to make Swarm host. And then like a year and a half to 2 years in, without any changes to it, people are just like, wait, what if I only made Swarm host? And
Swarm
then we
host
got
literally almost killed the game.
yeah.
Like, actually, the Broodlord and the Swarm host are the
But
two
it took,
units.
it took almost 2 years for people to realize it. And like, I again, this is not an attack on any race. I just think it's funny how long it sometimes takes us to realize how good units are.
People get into their like what the standard is and just don't want to switch out of it, and it makes sense, right? Because like if you take a risk to change your playstyle, you risk losing because you're just being you're being experimental, right? And when you're playing at the highest level, you're not willing to take that risk as much. But it is actually funny to me how bad the PTSD, even on the balance team, must have been over the Swarm host and the Broodlord, because they literally nerfed them out of existence.
Yeah.
Like Oh, the Stormhost is such a meme unit now, and so is like the Broodlord. Kind of with the Thor thing, kind of became the same way. Like it just sort of was like, you know what? Maybe it's just better if we make it so that you just don't want to build these units. Yeah.
So to close out Ghost real quick, it looks like
S.
Twitch chat did
Everyone
vote.
said S.
Well, yeah, everyone said S. Twitch chat said
accidentally
A, just so
voted
you know.
B, so it would have been a tie.
Oh, it would have been a tie. Okay,
It would have been a
that's
tie.
fair.
S.
Twitch chat said
Fuck
A?
Twitch chat. S.
Yeah, Twitch. Well, they by one vote they said
Twitch
A.
chat's a bunch
S.
of gold leaguers and Smile, and Smile
I
said
want to
S.
defend Twitch chat a little bit, and I think the
Listen.
poll came up when we hadn't clearly identified
hadn't
that we were
talked
moving on
about
to the next
anything.
unit. Some people thought we were still talking about the drone.
S.
I will
S.
say,
S.
that I put it in A simply because of the qualifier that I had of if you don't make it in all three races, it couldn't be S. I stuck to my guns about that, and TVT you don't make it. So I said at best it can be A, but I wholeheartedly agree with you guys that in the two matchups you make it.
So
It is
good.
ridiculous. It's incredible.
Put it in S.
It
Next.
makes up.
It's an S. It's an S. It's an S. Okay, the
let's
next
see.
one, and I think this one just makes sense to do it kind of together, is Hellbat and then also Hellion. They do have this split by both of those, so
Okay.
I guess we're treating them as different units, because why not?
Who's
Or
going
we can treat
first?
them as
I'll
one.
go
Up to
first.
you guys.
I
Go ahead. Go ahead, Sal.
Okay. Both in B.
Both in B, okay.
I put them both in B because like they're good in TVZ. They're like okay in TVT. Maybe you build two, sometimes one. You can get away with building none. Like you can play mech with them, but like even then, you don't really want them. You're just kind of waiting. And I agree with Smile. Hellbats aren't particularly good in TVZ. If your opponent's like right on whatever you're doing, like you kind of only morph them into Hellbats to get a little bit more out of units you don't really want anymore anyway. They're like, they're never a unit, like they have a very specific purpose in TVZ, but then after that, you kind of just either leave them at your third and never look at them again until they die from a run by, or you yeet them with your army as a shield and then just hope that they die because you actually want the supply in something else.
Mm-hmm.
But in TVP, like there's one build order that's like it's played but not played a ton. You use the 4 Hellion drop and that's it. Like aside from that, you just don't play the unit. It's not very good. At least at in the current meta. I just don't think it's as good in any matchup as it should be to make A. But it certainly has a role. And I certainly am not unhappy when I build it.
Okay.
So it gets the cozy, cushy B tier in my opinion.
The B,
Both
the
of them.
average.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would say the Hellion gets a little, like if there was a B plus, Hellion would get that. But yeah,
Okay. Neuro, how about you? Where did you put Hellbat? And then we're just doing Hellion kind of at the same time.
I put the Hellion in A tier and I put the Hellbat in B tier. The Hellbat is so slow that you can't really do much with it aside from represent the value on the field there. And they're a specialist unit, which they're good at their job, but if I see them coming, like I know how to respond to it. The Hellion is pretty fast and I think can be really oppressive with a good player who knows how to like pull your attention one way.
True.
Just how devastating a Hellion run by is to a worker line, especially in TVZ, is I think worthy of A tier for sure.
The problem is that they're just not played that way in any other matchup, and that's kind of the only role they're good at.
Yeah.
Like they're in PvT or in TVP you can play it. You can do a 4 Hellion drop, but it's not super standard. It's kind of like if I'm playing a best of 7 and I need a 4th build order, it's like a decent build. I can proxy the starport, or like I can try and hide my Hellions instead of doing a mind drop when I've done a mind drop the last 3 games or whatever. But it's not a build you're like leading a series with, or you're going to try and close a series out with. So like A tier, I just want to play them more. And I think pros would want to play them more than they do, in my opinion. Like, that's the only reason. Like in TVZ, they're great. They'd be an A tier unit, even if like they suck in the later stages. Like they serve their role really well in TVZ, but they don't excel at it, and they don't excel. They're just like not really played in the other 2 matchups. In my opinion.
Got it. And then we're doing the Hellion voting right now for Twitch chat. So they put Hellbat in C. Ravi, where did you put these two?
I put them both in B. I consider them the same unit, the same way I would consider a landed Viking the same unit as an air Viking.
Okay, sure.
But I pretty much all the reasons said before, but also just like it's a unit that does its job like pretty well, and you're never like sad. You're never sitting there like, oh damn, I wish I didn't have these Hellions, or I wish I didn't have this Hellbat. Like, you find a use for it. I also want to note at the current rate, I just did the math on it. The current rate that we're putting units, this will take 6 hours and 40 minutes. So
that's true.
We may want to.
We will speed up a little bit here.
Yeah, I only have another hour and a half. So
got it. We'll be done before then. Understood. All right, fair enough. So it sounds like Hellbat Hellion probably fitting in B then.
Yeah, and chat kind of agrees. Or
slapping it in. Chat said Hellbat in C tier, and it looks like Hellion's probably going to win in B tier. So that's fair. I think I put Hellion in D, or Hellbat in D, because I kind of had Zerg brain, and I'm like, that unit sucks. And then I think I put Hellion in B, because fast car.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about Swarm Host, Ravi? Where does Swarm Host belong?
I'm ready.
Oh, I need to find them. I don't even remember.
I'm surprised you don't know off the top of your head. I could say that without looking.
Okay, how about you, Sal?
I did not put them in D tier. I did not put them in C tier either. I think I put them in B tier.
Okay.
I put the Swarm Host in. I put the Swarm Host in C.
Oh,
there's only one unit I have in D tier.
I put it in
A tier.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why. It's specifically because it's actually almost entirely because of how I've seen players like Scarlet and stuff being able to use them, even in today's day and age. I know that they're like super duper uncommon, but I think the build orders and stuff that you use, and here's the other part of this, is that I'm not just factoring in pro level play. I think Swarm Hosts are very frustrating to deal with if you're not at pro level, because you do need to be really on point with dealing with like Nidus Swarm Host stuff. Is really, really frustrating to deal with, I think, if you're not pro level.
I agree. My off-race Protoss having 2 base Swarm Host Nidus is probably the most obnoxious way you play the video game.
Yeah, I would be fine with putting it in like B tier. I think it was like bottom of A for me.
I put it in C tier because the only time that I feel smart when I use the Swarm Host is when I'm mech, and I want to like go up Roach Ravager, pile Swarm Host and trade, and then go home. And that's the only game state where Swarm Host is a good idea.
Yeah. Okay, so Ravi, I play one guy who plays the Swarm Host ZVT. I haven't lost to him in 2 years. I draw him every time I play on an A, and he's fucking horrible. Everyone else I've ever played does not play Swarm Host in TBZ. And like, if you look at the pro level, they're just not played. I mean, some players may try and bust them out in like PVZ, but ZVZ is like no, right? Like you're never playing that in ZVT.
It's a meme build if you make them in ZVZ.
Yeah, but that doesn't like, all right, sure. But like I could drop a PF in your base too, and that's a meme build. And just because I'm like, it's I don't think it's against mech, they're pretty okay, I think. Like, but again, other than that, and maybe even the question is even in ZVP, is that really what you're gonna want to play?
No,
like
it's an better ways risky to play unit.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I would probably like, if I had like chosen it just right now, I probably would put it in B tier, just because I think it still does have like some value, and I actually think it's like maybe a little underutilized right now. I think people like reeled too hard back on the nerfs.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
In the current meta, I can't stomach giving it anything above a C personally. I just don't see him.
Neuro, after you were done with your stream last night, you rated into Agile. The literal next game he played was versus Protoss, and he survived on 3 bases for 20 minutes with 18 Swarm Hosts. And the guy he was playing against someone who went full air, and I don't understand how any of this game works anymore. I clearly don't understand what's going on. He didn't creep anywhere. There was no creep on the map.
But he played
He was literally just running them into the darkness, He had like 10 queens or something like that too. It was a very strange looking game. I put them in D. They're used really commonly in one specific matchup in one specific case. It's not even like Terran in general, because if you make Swarm Host versus Bio, you're in a really not great spot probably.
Well, chat said C, and since we know that they're all peer reviewed, I'm gonna have to say C.
C.
Right? Their work is being peer reviewed. So
I would be okay with chat that I was S tier. So just want you to factor that.
Oh yeah, well, but those people are either on crack or they're memeing. That's fine.
Neuro, where'd you put Hydras?
Man,
Yeah,
They
I know.
massacred my boy.
Lament to me, brother.
The Hydra was a unit that was like the backbone of the Zerg. Whenever I was describing ZVP to people back in Heart of the Swarm, if you're trying to play solid, correct macro, the Hydra is like the middle of your mid game. It's the unit that allows your DPS to come online. It allows you to fight air. It's your backline behind the roaches. The Hydra is really a good muscle unit, and you can multitask with them, like send a Roach Hydra hit squad this way, do Hydra drops, things like that. But then over time, they nerfed the Hydra by splitting its upgrades into 2, which meant it doesn't come online as fast. And then just the number of strong counters to the Hydra increased dramatically with Legacy of the Void. So High Templar, just hard counter them, super hard. They're not quite as good as Bio DPS. They're close, but Bio can just kind of face tank it and do fine. Yeah, they're kind of poopy now. I put them in D tier just because when I make them and I take fights, they just instantly die, and then I feel sad.
All right, Sal, where are they?
B. I think B.
Okay.
I think B because Lingbane Hydra's still pretty alright. It's probably underplayed at the moment. The Hydra's not terrible TVZ, but like it really is a lurker delivery system.
Okay.
I would say that they're like, are they on the level of the Swarm Host? Is the question you have to ask. If we put the Swarm Host as C, are they
Swarm
really
Hosts are
shit as a Swarm Host? Because the answer is probably no. Right? I don't think they're that bad.
I have opinions about this, but I want to hear what Robbie says first.
Oh, I just put it in B. Like, to give you again, I think I said this before, but like my context on it is D tier is why did I make this unit? C tier is I need to make this unit, but I don't want to. B tier is I'm gonna make this unit and it'll be okay, but not great if I end up needing it, or if I don't need it later, but I can find a use for it. And that's kind of where I put Hydra. I'm like, yeah, Hydras, they have you can always find something for them. It doesn't hurt to have Hydras. Yeah.
And they're played in ZVZ too a little bit, right? Like Roach Hydras.
The issue with ZVZ is the Ravager comes online way faster because it doesn't require any upgrades. And the Bile forces units to move, and Hydras don't have that level of pressure in DPS. So with Legacy of the Void again for ZVZ, instead of going from Roach into Hydra like you did in HOTS, going from Roach into Ravager is standard, and Hydra is a risk, where you have to be defensive until your Hydra upgrades are done, so you're kind of stuck at home, and they don't really shine until you get the really good upgrades like 2-2 or 3-3. If you're low upgrade situation, Roach Ravager is way better.
But are they better than Swarm Hosts?
The thing is, at least Swarm Hosts are good at what they do in their niche. Hydras, it feels like, are they really good at what they do in their niche? Because if you want anti-air, the Queen is better, just for a general purpose fighting unit.
The trick that Zerg players have kind of we've kind of copiumed ourselves into this corner where the Hydra is a unit you make by necessity because we have no other alternative. There is no other unit that will attack the air that we can move out. Now, especially with the Queen transfuse nerf, you cannot move Queens across the map as easily anymore. So now you have to make Hydras if you need to account for any amount of air. It's just kind of required. Unless you're going into Spire, unless you're going to Corruptor or something. Firmly, I believe Hydras are D tier, and we make them by necessity. They're terrible.
My extra little tiny bit I'll throw in is that Hydras are an intermediary transitionary point to smooth over getting to Lurkers, which I think is a pretty damn good unit. So I think that buffs them up for me a little bit. It's like you get a little bit extra firepower as you go to Lurkers.
Yeah. The thing for me with the Lurker too is, and maybe this is my Zerg brain just going, oh, they're underpowered or something. They're good versus, like, we just described how Ghost just deletes them from the map. You do not make them versus Protoss anymore, really. They are quite bad. I think when Scarlet was in your chat, Neuro, she literally said ignore that Hydra even exists when you play versus Protoss, because that's how bad Hydras and Lurkers are in that situation.
Yep.
And versus Zerg, you seldomly get there because Roach Ravager is such a strong and much easier to get to composition, much safer to get to as well. So maybe I'm going out on a limb. Maybe I'm gonna be I don't know.
I'll put them
crucified
C.
for this.
You guys have convinced me that they're worse than I thought they were. If you guys want to go C, I don't think they're D tier because I have 1 unit in D, and that's like
the thing with your perspective, Sal, is the way that you play like standard bio macro. Lingbane Hydra is a fair way to fight that. So it's pretty good there. But in any other case, like even against Mech, Roach Hydra Viper is a shadow.
Yeah, even against Mech, you wouldn't want it. I mean, it's just not like I feel like this. If we're putting the Stormhost as C, I think that it was better. But I can buy Hydra C at C plus or something like that. Like
I want to throw one more thing for Hydra at B, which is not pro level player. Like if we're talking about ease of use, Hydra is in the same category. I think it complements for like players who are learning StarCraft or like players.
Sure.
I say like learning, but like I mean all the way up until like Masters. You can kind of just go Roach Hydra. Like it's just like a very easy, no like extra brain power kind of thing. Like you just focus on macro and you focus on like making units.
I'm putting Hydra in C. I think that we can probably all agree on that. Twitch chat put it in B, pretty solidly in B as well.
Yeah, what do they know?
Again, I think it's just I think we've tricked ourselves into thinking
there's
Hydras
only
are
1
better
unit
than
in
they
D,
are.
chat.
Really.
Come on, stop with this Hydra in D. It's not D. There's 1 unit in D.
It's definitely D.
There's 1 unit that when you build it, you're like, I probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, so we are definitely spending a lot of time. Cobra is giving me the hurry it up. Let me switch up the format a little bit here, and tell me what your favorite pick is that we haven't done yet. So your S tier. What your worst pick is. What's your D tier if you've got a special place in hell for a couple of these units, and then we'll speed run kind of the rest of them. We'll kind of go a little bit quicker because we are almost like 2 hours into the show.
1 unit in S and 1 unit in D?
Tell me 1 unit of the ones we have list that you put in S, 1 unit that we put in D for each of you guys, and then we'll kind of go through the rest of it quicker. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll just pick up what's remaining. Okay. Just show us the list so that we can see what we're choosing from here.
Okay, I can scroll down a little bit here and get you the list. I think it should be up there. All right. Sal, you go first. What do you got?
Chad, do we want what the unit in D is? Or do we want... let's start with, so in S, I definitely put the Marine.
Okay. Marine is S.
We're S-ing up the Marine here. The Marine is S.
No one disagrees with Marine being an S.
Not. If you disagree, uninstall StarCraft and go install Checkers, okay? Knock it off. Marine is S.
Okay. Robbie, you agree with that? I'm assuming?
Yep.
Okay.
Anyone who disagrees gets banned in chat.
Okay.
Well, now that you say that, Neuro...
Ravi, relax. The opinion you're about to hold is very dangerous, okay?
Yeah.
Do not relax.
Can we just get the other one out of the way? The Ling is S. It's another easy S. We can just put some of the freebies up there, too, I feel like. We have some freebies that we haven't gotten to.
Ling is S.
Ling is S?
Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What else are the S ones? Give me what are the other freebies?
Adept, super easy S. Incredibly easy S.
I don't know.
I put Queen up at S still.
I have Queen at S.
Queen is also S, yes.
Okay, Queen is S. Why? Let me revisit Adept because we're kind of rapid firing now. I think, yes, Queen's still S even with the nerf 100%. I agree with that. What about the Adept? Why is that
Adept B?
The Adept?
My PBT
Here's
is
the thing.
through here.
The Adept is a unit that if you are really good with it, you can just win games with it over and over and over again, just based on how the shade mechanic works and how much skill is there. It's really good value in HP.
It's good PvP. Yeah, I agree. I would go with A, but like I kind of agree, right? Because in PvZ it's winnable just as a unit. In PvT, it excels as a scouting unit. So like it does its job extremely well, even if its job is small, right? Its job is narrow, but you basically build on every game, or
what
two.
About PvP?
Or whatever. And in PvP, they're played for the same reason. You build a couple at the start to scout, right? To like go up the ramp and shit to see like what's going on.
So it's a very good scouting unit that could also just win you one of the matchups.
But in PvZ, it's not just a scouting unit. You actually play it, right? And it's actually really good. So I would give it. I would go A, but if you want to go S, that's fine. Ravi, what do you want to do?
I went B. I think there are like there are downsides to making adepts and stuff. I think like it hurts your transitionary stuff. Like not necessarily like for the I'm making a scouting adept kind of thing, but doing anything than just a scouting adept, I think does slow down a lot of your other like builder choices at important points in time.
I will concede the A because they're not good in the late game. So
yeah,
I think
like you just don't want adepts later on.
All right.
Yeah, but like it's more whether or not they do their role. They do their role perfectly. And you build them every game, so they're a necessity.
If you want to talk about what their role was supposed to be, it was supposed to be beating a meat-in tank for the Protoss army, which it really doesn't do
but it's
anywhere past like this.
Rapid fire. Let's do another freebie. Ravager S tier. Easy S.
I had Ravager.
I had A. Yeah.
I would go S as well. What stops it from being S? Because it's literally the most. They're one of the most broken units. It has no tags, so there's no unit that directly just counters it.
I mean, you play it ZVP a lot, you play it ZVZ a lot, and ZVT, I mean, they're good, but like
I play them.
I always kind of rank Roach Ravagers kind of like low.
That's because you're a macro player.
Yeah, they are pretty good though. I can
play them versus bio. It's not.
I had them at A.
Look at the
put
chat.
Them high A or S if you want.
Look at the chat. We're all on the same page. Let's go.
I think we're S.
S next.
No, it's not. It's not necessarily S. What does Chad think here?
Look at the S.
No. All right. Yeah, it's kind of S now. All right. Fine. Okay. You guys win. Fine. All right.
All right. Let's go. Let's get another easy one out there. Infestor D tier.
Whoa, I had Infestor at B tier.
Yeah.
What?
Oh, I had Infestor at B tier. No, because there's a unit worse. No.
You have a weird thing where you'll only put one unit in.
No. In D tier, there's only one unit allowed. I'm sorry.
What is the unit? Let's just get it out of the way.
What is the unit? What's the unit in D?
The mothership belongs in fucking D.
No. Mothership is C tier.
It's C tier for sure. You're fucking out of your mind.
I put it in C tier.
You're forgiven on this because you don't have to play PvZ late game.
I guess you have to build one in that matchup, but minus 400, man. It's actually bad. Get that shit out of here. It
is knocking on the door of D tier, but it's not there yet.
It is the doormat to C tier. Okay, it is D.
I will also say Mothership is highly I think still underutilized with how its recall is separated from the Nexus, and the fact that you could do 2 recalls without any cooldown. Like, there's a bunch of cool things with the Mothership that I think bumps it up.
D.
Okay, Mothership C next.
Okay, Mothership C. Fantastic. It's definitely not
here.
I had
hold on. Let's finish Infestor. We're still rapid firing, but we did Infestor.
You can't possibly tell me the Mothership is better than the Infestor. Put it at C2.
It is for sure better than the Infestor.
Fine,
but that's okay.
What?
The Infestor is so trash.
The Infestor has been nerfed so many times in so many different ways. Many people forgot that it's even a unit.
You still see it played, man. At C. Yeah. At worst.
Fungal is still a...
I could go with C. I can go with
C. next.
I could go C. I'll bend with C. Sure. I would love to put it in D, though.
Broodlord in D tier and move on from that one.
Ultralisk D tier.
Broodlord and
Ultralisk, I had it at C, but
and the Broodlord.
I'll give it D.
Bundle deal. 2-for-1 D tier.
Bundle deal. Tier 3 Zerg D tier.
Yep.
So wait, hold on, Ravi. Do you think Broodlord's D? This feels like we're getting 2 on 1 here.
Okay. Here's why I don't think Broodlord is D. Because D is like trash unit, and Broodlord, especially in PvZ, actually has a place where like you get out 4 or 5 Broodlords, you actually just kind of can sometimes win the game.
Yeah, but
it can be a unit that literally just is like, and now you win the game.
Yeah, and I still see it played in ZVT, although it's not.
Is it a win more unit though, or is it actually the unit you get to and it's like finally I
It's not like the Ultra. The Ultra, when I see people build Ultras, I'm like, oh, so you die now. But whereas like Broodlords, that's not the case. Like you can especially get people who are not paying attention to the transitioning. Like they haven't realized that you have like 8 Corruptors. Like you can get them.
Broodlords are slow as fuck, and the reason why Broodlords are D tier is because they do a similar job to the Lurker, but worse in almost every way aside from that they fly. The lurker is invisible. The lurker can be transported with Nidus. The lurker runs faster. The lurker does more DPS. It's just way better. The Broodlord got nerfed big time with the Frenzy debuff being removed as well, so it's not even really a thing in ZVZ. You have to go explore lurker.
There's one additional
problem with it is
does better. There's one additional thing.
What is it?
It's that the Broodlord comes from the Corruptor, and if you're facing off in a lot of those like stalemate situations, especially in ZVP, like you're already making Corruptors, you're already getting those upgrades and everything. Like you have an answer to do like hit sieged up positions without having to go into an entire separate tech tree.
I would say that like the reason the Broodlord isn't D is because at least in ZVT, the lurker, like if you compare it to the lurker I can actually kill them with the units I would be building normally, but the Broodlord I actually need to build a completely separate set of things I wasn't already building to fight it, and if I don't have those things I lose, right? So they have a place where you can take advantage of your opponent. Either they're in shambles economically or whatever. They're not like it's not like the ult. See, the Ultra's also in this camp, right? So it's better than the Ultra because the Ultra's in the camp that with the units I currently possess, which are Marauders, Marines, and Medevacs, your Ultras will still die.
Yeah.
So like the Broodlord is not like that. I have to go out of my way to build counter units, which even though I know you don't want to build Broodlords, that puts them better than the Ultra. The Ultra's really shit. So if that's our bar for D, like I
would agree that Broods are better than Ultra, and they still scale with the same melee upgrades you've probably been getting all game with the Broodlings. So at least they have that. But does that make it C though? Like
it makes it better than the Ultra, yeah. Like
it makes it better than the Ultra, but
I have to care about the fact that you're building them. Like, I have to care that you're building Broodlords. I do not have to care that you're building Ultras.
As a bio player. Speaking as a bio player,
specifically as a bio player, but I think even in the other matches, like, your just general units won't kill them like they'll kill Ultras. I don't know.
Thor versus Broodlord is like a sad comedy movie. When you watch it, it's just like, you don't laugh, you just feel
cry.
sad.
Yeah,
you just go, why did I do this?
It's like it's a tragic rom-com with no actual good feels at the end.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in PvZ though, right? Like it's this like if you're going Sky Toss, then yes, the Broodlords will be very sad and stuff. But like if the Protoss is not going Sky Toss, if they went for like a Twilight opening or whatever, and they're like still in this ground-based army, they have a bunch of Archons and Immortals, they're just like, well fuck. Like, fuck me.
They base race at that point.
Yeah,
because the Broodlord
it's
can't
super
base
uncomfortable. Like okay, again, like going back to my tier definitions, D tier is like, why did I make this unit? I regret it, and
it's above that. Like you can win games. Pros can win games. C tier is like,
I made the unit, but I wasn't happy about it.
Yeah,
we can put it in C tier to move on.
Okay.
But I put it in.
Put it in C. There are applications in which you make a Broodlord and you do not immediately lose the
unhappy.
game.
But I do feel like every time I see a player make an Ultralisk, I know that's going on in their head.
It's just like,
and they're already thinking about the next game in the series.
Strategy.
Yes, this is a very common strategy.
Twitch chat also put Broodlord at C, so we're starting to agree with Twitch chat now, which is kind of concerning. I
put it at B,
make that much.
Yeah,
okay, that's fair. B for Broodlord makes sense. Next one, let's go ahead. We've talked about it a bunch. Let's just slap into Lurker. Where's Lurker going?
I put it A.
S tier.
S.
You put it S.
S tier.
I put it A after the nerf, but S pre-nerf.
A is fine because the prevalence of air in PvZ means that by the time your Lurker upgrades are done, the carrier count is so high that you don't want Lurkers anymore anyway. Yeah. And in ZVZ, they're quite good in ZVZ, so that buffs its score up. And against Terran, it feels okay.
In TVZ, they were much. They're like, you will notice in the next tournament season that they're played a lot less because they're just much worse. Like that, the ability for you to run away from them while they burrow is just huge. Like it has fundamentally changed how good they are. I think
Lurker A, good.
Lurker A is fine.
We're in agreement.
All right, I would have gone with B or even C, even, but
no, absolutely not. Fucking B.
I mean,
Lurker A.
There's definitely arguments for B.
Immortal, Immortal S, Immortal A.
Immortal
I put it in
A
S
for me.
I put it in S.
Okay. Twitch
You put
chat
it
also
in S,
thinks Lurker
Ravi.
is A. Just
I
so
put it
you
in
know.
S.
I know they're
Immortal's a
kind
damn
of
good
behind.
unit.
Super good at what it does. Just spamming them in your ground army is
Yeah,
fantastic.
Immortal is really good. Why did
It's
I
like-
put it?
Yeah. Heavily micro.
I feel like they're just one of those units that like sometimes they're stupid and sometimes they're just so bad. You're like, why did you build any of them? But like,
Well,
I could go with S or A.
It is dependent on micro a lot of the time.
Yeah, they
Okay.
just fall off pretty. I would say A, but like if you want to go
Yeah.
S or whatever you guys want to do, but I think
I'd go
I'll put
S.
it at
Yeah.
A.
do you make them in every matchup? I know you make them versus Zerg.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
make them versus.
You
Yeah,
make
you
them
do.
in
You make
every
them versus
matchup.
Terran too.
It's the least versus Terran, but you still make them sometimes.
Yeah, you still make
Okay.
them. They're still
I
valuable.
would. Do they excel? Are they like on the level of Queen Ghost Ravager to put
Absolutely
them in
not,
S?
though.
Okay,
No.
well then I think that's A. Then they gotta be.
Yeah,
you know,
A.
gotta be. If it's not the S is
I
the
think-
cream of the crop. I think that's what we're trying
I mean,
to
in
do.
my
Fine,
mind,
fine.
it's on the same level as a Baneling, but sure, we can do A to move on.
Okay, that's fair.
Colossus.
hmm
I put it as A.
I put it as C.
I put it as A.
Uh,
But I can understand why you would put it C
Yeah.
as from ZVP's perspective for sure.
yeah, it's
Yoink,
more
dead, dead.
counterable than the other like
Yeah.
big units from Protoss.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
a little underutilized sometimes.
Honestly,
in PvZ, but
I would put it at B if you guys wanted to, like, because it
Yeah.
just
I would be comfortable with B.
I'd
Yeah,
be comfortable with
B.
B.
B
You don't
plus.
even need to build them either. You could just play. There's so many other things you could do in PvT that are worthwhile, but they are very good in PvT as well.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered the other matchups for that pick too much.
The Zealot.
I had
A or
B
S.
tier.
I'm
Do you put
sorry.
it as B?
B.
Did you say D as in dog?
B
Okay.
is in Mark.
Okay,
Okay.
listen. The Zealot is an S tier unit. Okay, it belongs in S tier, and I am amazed that you would put it in B tier.
It's like the Zergling of Protoss. It's very fast. It hits hard. It has
And it
good health
does
by
maximum
cost.
damage, and you can literally not look at them after you
I
build them
could
in someone's
like
face.
I would in my mind it was like top of B, like maybe A. It does have a fall off point, and it does have a lot of like its own problems and stuff that I think it
There-
runs into.
Yeah,
There's
but
a
they're
point-
real good.
Where it's exclusively only a harassment unit. And if you actually have it in your army,
Yeah.
you're just like,
But that's the
What are
thing
you
is that like
doing?
even
Wasting your
even
time.
once it's fallen off as an army unit, it still has a place. So like it's a sick army unit, and then even when it stops being a sick army unit, it still has a reason for you to build it because it's just that good. Like you can literally play PvT at the highest level, building zealots and stalkers. Zest demonstrates it every time he ends up in GSL.
Okay.
Like you don't only need to build the two units; you can just
okay,
do that.
Okay.
Like it's that good. And then even if he transitions, what does he do with the zealots? He keeps building them and he sends them everywhere on the map. They are amazing. Okay, and then they YOLO in and they just charge everything, and then you never look at them again. They just die, taking down the environment around with them.
I think they're really good. I don't know if they're S though.
S
Like S tier on the same. You put them on the same pedestal as Marine. You go, oh
They're
yeah, Zealot Marine.
pretty fucking good units.
Well, they're way chunkier than the Marine, so it's not that they shoot air and stuff, but
All right.
they're really good at what they do, and you can
Listen,
make them in all phases of the game.
I'll put them in S. I'm just
Put 'em in S.
You can just
I'm putting
you
them
can
in
just
S.
always if you have like
Ah,
three
put 'em in
zealots,
S.
you're not like, bro, what do I do with these units?
Okay,
Oh, zealots?
Okay.
that's fair. That's
You fight for ire. That's what you do with zealots.
Yep.
Yeah,
All
for
right,
your
all right.
let's go.
I
Those are
give you that there is.
definitions. I mean, I feel like
I
a lot
can-
of the A units would be S tier if it was just like you never wonder what you're going to do with them.
I concede that at any point in the game there is a use that you can have for a zealot. I think if we had infinite time, I would maybe argue A, but
Like
we
I
don't,
can
so.
no, I can concede A. I could concede A if you guys want to.
It's
you guys
fine.
clearly
Nah,
don't
it's
think
fine,
it's as
it's
good as I think it is, but like we can give it A if you want. That's fine.
S
but
is good,
I think
and
it's that
then-
good.
We're doing S because we got to move on.
Twitch chat
But,
votes Phoenix on C.
Phoenix
That's the
is
same
on
that I put.
C.
Where did I put
put
it?
it
I
in
put it
B.
B.
B tier.
I put it in. Where the heck did I put it?
I put it B.
Phoenix. I had Chicken Man with me, so certainly it's got to be up there somewhere.
Yeah, I mean in PvT it's played. and in
PvP it has good
in
utility
PvP
and
it's
stuff.
played.
PvZ it has utility.
Yeah,
we
and PvZ,
put it in A, which is most assuredly a
I
chicken
think it's
man
worse
vote
than
right there.
A, but
Yeah.
I think it's not C.
Okay.
It's not on the
looks like
level of the fucking
B
Broodlords,
has
bro.
won out. Yeah, that's true. It is certainly better than Broodlords.
Like
It's
those
gotta
are the
be.
comparisons you're making. Like,
I mean, I just want to put it out there. I literally made Broodlord tier under D, and I put Broodlord in there. That's how bad I thought that
yeah,
unit
but the
was, so.
Ultralisk is the real D tier. As I
It
learned,
is
I
really
thought
D.
the Mothership was awful, but then I remembered PvZ exists, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. But
Yeah,
the
Okay,
real,
I'm comfy with B. I'm comfy with
Yeah,
B.
B is
I think
fine.
that makes
B.
sense. That's fine.
it makes sense. It's next to the
Liberator. How are we feeling about Lib? I think Lib is S. I'm just gonna go out there right now and say it.
I put Liberator in an A tier.
I put it as
Because
B, but I would put it A with Neuro.
They're not
I
like
changed my mind.
super great trading versus air. Their versus ground stuff is really oppressive, and like the ability to kill an entire base worth of workers if you're not paying attention to it is crazy. So yeah, A.
The seemingly minimum amount of micro you need to harass a flying unit is insane, and there's still a good spot for it in your army. It's not even just a harassment unit, so it's multifaceted, and I think that's really good.
I think there are not actually. So just to add really quickly to the harassment thing, there are not many. Even like with war prisms, or as you talk about like zealots and stuff, like there's not that many options in StarCraft where you can queue up a harassment and then not look at it at all. Like not even like it arrives and then you have to warp in something with a war prism or anything. Of like you literally just queue it up and you can go to almost any base and harass without actually you spending any action after that.
Well,
I would go on record saying
it depends on if they got spores and shit. Like that's not necessarily true. I lose Liberators all the time.
There are reactions and stuff, sure, but like I'm saying, there is like like if you use a war prism, there's a necessary action. If you use an oracle, there's a necessary action at the time that you are like it arrives. You can actually do a set in like forget it.
Here's the thing, though.
So I put
it will
as
still kill units if there's a spore there.
But
no,
it'll kill like 2 units, and it's nowhere near its value.
Sure, but like think of it. Think of
players do that.
Think of like
you can literally warp
in
3 DTs and right click them into a mineral line. Don't try and tell me that there are no other units that you can just right click into a fucking mineral line.
I agree. DTs,
and it kills stuff.
DTs
4 Banelings. How many
ones.
times have you right clicked 4 Banelings and then just left and then they kill the entire mineral line?
We haven't gotten to DT yet. I'm not.
No. All I'm saying is that like the idea that the Liberator is somehow fucking sick because you can just right click it and then siege it with no micro is not. That's not what makes it good. The thing that makes it good is that if I have a Liberator, I'm always like, I got a good use for you. Yeah. We can do something pretty sick. If we're in TVT, I can use them to kill you if I have air superiority. If I'm in TVP, they're the only way that I can kill you if you've got disruptors. And if we're in TVZ and I'm doing a push, I'm super happy I have Liberators. I'm never like, bro, I don't know what to do with these Liberators. Like
Liberator
there's
S.
never a moment where I'm like, they're not S.
How
they're
are
not
they not S?
Because they have a serious downside, and every time you siege them, you're like, oh shit, if I have to move, my entire army is fucked because I'm relying on this unit and where it is. It's not a very good like instant siege. Like take the siege tank is obviously much better in certain scenarios when you need to like siege, but the Liberator is kind of unwieldy and it like kind of sucks as an air unit. It's not very good at that. It's only really good in certain situations, but if I have them, I can use them, and in every matchup, I can use them. I put them at A, but I would not put them S. Like, they're not a Marine. They're not Marine good.
A tier.
A tier.
All right. With complaint, I will put them in A, but that's fine. I'm fine to be wrong. That's okay. Marauder, or what are we doing next? DT, sorry. Cobra has done DT next, so let's do that one. Dark Templar.
A. That is an A tier unit.
I put it in B tier, but I'm fine with an A tier call.
Yeah, 8. They're just too good. Like
I think they're a little bit better against Terran than against Zerg.
I think even versus Zerg, like it just in any matchup they have an opportunity to just win the game. Like they're good. Like Sal was actually saying, because this is one of the units I agree with. Like it's a set it and forget it. Like send a DT into every mineral line and then literally just find out that you won the game like after the game is over.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. A is fine with me. I'm happy.
I'm good with it. I'm good with A. A is.
And Twitch chat agrees. It is A. Next up is the Marauder.
I put that in A.
I put that in A.
It just doesn't shoot up, so it's not S.
Neuro?
I put it in B, but I'm fine with an A call.
It's just too like you build them all the time, and they build them in just in copious amounts, and they're very good in two of the matchups. And like TVT, they're only good against mech, but like they're really, really, really good in synergy with Marines, but they're just not as good as a Marine. Like they're not S tier, but I put them in A because
I'm happy for
good.
A.
Yeah,
I think A is a very fair call for them. Sweet. We'll see what Twitch chat does. Looks like B is winning out for that. Actually, yeah, B won. Wow. Yeah, I don't think they're that bad.
You're wrong.
Yeah, I think they're.
I would say they're better than chat's giving them credit for in TVZ. Like they soak Banelings like crazy, and then they free win against free win against Ultras. They're even pretty good at the versus lurker phase. Like they're pretty decent. I would say
Observer.
B
I
tier.
have that at A.
I could see A.
Yeah,
I didn't have a strong opinion on this.
I would have put them in B before the range and siege, but not with that. Like I'd give it A. But that's your call. Like I could give it B if you want. I wouldn't give it S.
Wait, the what?
Strongly either way. Observer. The Observer.
I put it in B. It's okay. It doesn't kill stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it does its role really, really, really well. But yeah, I agree. Like I can see that. I can see that.
The negative of Observer to Overseer is that Observer you have to dedicated make, where Overseers we could just I have an Overlord. I had to make those anyways. I can just morph it. So that's like one of the big downfalls. So yeah, I would say I'm fine with B.
I'm alright with B. I can.
B it is.
It. I would
Archons.
like A.
A tier.
A for Archon makes sense. They're quite good.
The only downside is they can't fit through doors.
And the fact that the ghost exists.
EMP deletes them from the game completely.
Yes.
Yeah, the Archon goes from being a unit that's actually like S plus tier to like C tier. Like if you have ghosts. It goes from being so difficult to kill and so strong to actually horrible. Like, why did I even do this to my High Templar?
Yeah.
It would have been better to let them die that way.
I would
better attack moving as High Templar. Like,
I would be better off.
At least they would have gotten an attack off.
If Ghost didn't exist, Archons would be S for sure.
Yeah,
I think
100%.
like that. That's the only thing that holds them back. So I think A makes sense. A for Archon. Overlord. How do you guys feel about Overlords? Obviously, a required unit. You have to make them, but I don't know. How do you feel about them?
I put them in A tier because you can do some cool stuff like creep drop, either to block bases or to speed your pushes. You can do drops with them. You can fill vision. I think that's one of the main things that pylons and depots can't do as well as fill vision in airspace. So A.
Being able to move away or supply from danger is also kind
if
of
you're comparing it to the other depots in the game, the other supply structures is much better.
Yeah, and also they can save your base from losing structures, where pylons do the opposite. You lose a pylon and now your base can't do things anymore. So it's like strictly better than those.
I actually think B tier because it's flying and that oddly makes it vulnerable.
A little weaker.
Like
Viking, Phoenix and Vikings and random other shit. So
you get higher utility out of them because you can scout with them. Obviously, that's incredibly good, and we get free scouting. But also, you run the risk of you might get supply blocked, or you lose supply. Right, exactly. But I think that you would still do it. I mean, it's still something we do. You don't have to scout with them. You can keep them in your base, but we do that. So obviously, the benefits outweigh the negatives.
I mean, we have two. What do we have? I said C, but I like B now. I think you guys have convinced me B. Who's on what here?
For the Overlord?
Yeah, for the
I
Overlord.
was on A.
I put A.
It's great. Yeah, I think they're amazing.
I said B.
Okay.
Because my other
Twitch chat
argument
says A, so let's go A.
Let's go A. Okay. All right, we'll do it. A.
There are tiebreakers if we've got a problem.
For sure. Unless they're like, it's D. It's like, all right, we'll just calm down. Banshee. Sal, where'd you put Banshee?
I have it in B.
B for Banshee.
I have it in B. In TVP, they like. I just won't. You just don't build them really. Like there are a couple builds, but like even then, they're not the best builds. It's a best of 7, like very specific thing that you do. TVZ, you build them, especially versus roaches. They're pretty good. So like you're not gonna be upset if you have 2 banshees. Like they're pretty good. TVT, the meta's kind of shifting now, but like for the last year and a half, I would have told you like if you build a banshee, you lose to 3 ravens. So don't build them. But like these days, I think people are getting Vikings and like instead after they get them, and so maybe they're okay now. I don't want them in any matchup except TVZ, so I put them in B.
Okay.
In TVZ, they feel like an A tier unit to me. I obviously don't know about the other matchups for Terran and how often you use them, but
nowhere near as good.
Like
nowhere near.
The 2 Banshee with Cloak opening is so solid and unexploitable. Yeah. And a good player can get like a ridiculous amount of value just like finding every little nook and cranny that doesn't have anti-air with Queen Spore. This is a very good unit at what it does. I would be fine. It's
also
overall though.
Any unit like that could. This is again specifically for against Zerg, but any unit that both keeps you safe from aggression and can be used as a harassment unit like that, it's got to just be super good. But I agree that since it's not made in the other matchups, B seems.
It's only it only serves that role that well in the one matchup, and the other 2 matchups they're like kind of risky comparatively.
Ravi, any strong feelings on it, or are we going B?
B.
Okay.
Tier.
B for Banshee. It helps it makes me feel comfortable with the alphabet. So High Templar.
S.
I have it at A. I have it at A.
S.
Okay.
I have it at A.
S and A. Ravi, where are you at? Let's just get all the letters out first, and then we'll figure it out.
Oh, I said A. Definitely like strong A. I think it does a lot of things really damn well, but it obviously has its vulnerabilities and like has its problems. Especially like feedback isn't as strong as it used to be. If feedback was actually like pre-nerf and it was like one-shotting Vipers and Ghosts and all that stuff, I would probably have it like closer to S. But
and I really isn't as strong as it used to be.
Like it doesn't kill the unit.
It doesn't instantly kill them. It still gets rid of all their energy.
The unit.
Yeah, but it's still weaker because you used to lose the Infestor too.
Yeah, like if I
not only would it deny you the ability to do something, but now
it would also kill it.
But also kill
it's like if I feedback a Viper, the Viper is going to have energy again before I have like energy to feedback. Again.
I would say A, simply because it's another unit where like if you're a bit like you being good with them is not as good as your opponent being better with the counters. Like the better your opponent plays, the worse the High Templar gets. Unlike the Ghost, where I don't think it matters how good your fucking opponent plays, like you're still like you have the say pretty much.
Sure.
Right?
High Templar require more positioning,
Well, not just that, like if me and Ravi are about to play and like I'm faster with my Ghosts, I will EMP every time and then snipe 100% of the time. Like he will lose the High Templar every time. Yeah. And for that reason, it's just not as good as a Ghost. I don't think anyway. It might be in PvZ, but the Ghost is good in 2. But in PvP, it's not like really that good. You prefer Disruptors normally, I think.
You don't get high if you get High Templars in PvP, it's just to make Archons.
I think they're just worse than the Ghost in PvT, and they're actually pretty similar in role, right? When you think about what they do. Like with the Ghost, you EMP and you blanket the army and you deplete the health by half, and they kind of counter each other, right? If the High Templar hits the feedback or the Ghost hits the EMP. So, like, it's worse in that matchup. And then you have PvZ, which I don't know a lot about. But even if it is as good as the Ghost is in PvZ, it's now worse than the Ghost in TVP. So I think A, because it just doesn't... Right? It's just not built in the mirror.
Sure. I think strictly following our rules, since there's a matchup where you just do not make them and do not do anything with them, it cannot be S. But I would agree with Neuro that PvZ, it's undoubtedly an S tier unit. Like
it's super
if there was this rank above S, it's probably there because that's just how insanely you could make it every single game blindly against Zerg, and it'll be a good decision for you to do that.
I disagree on that, but
the carrier High Templar army is so powerful and easy to use. It's incredible.
Carrier High Templar, yes. If you are getting, but okay, I don't think it's fair to be like, you could just go for High Templars every single game, and I'm like, yes, you could just go for a 6 base game versus anything and like get into Carrier High Templar.
Sure.
Like, yes, if in any situation it gets to like 5 or 6 bases and you can afford to have your carrier fleet backed up by a Templar, I agree. High Templars are S tier. Are you getting to that stage of the game all of the time or even most of the time? Like, I don't think so.
We can do
High Templars.
Yeah.
The reason that
I
it's
would
not
say
used in PvP.
okay.
But for PvZ, let it be known for the record that it's Super S.
It's Super S, yes. And yeah. If we had more time, we could discuss it longer. That's all right. We're running short. Oracle. Where is the Oracle going? What are we doing with it?
I put it on A. It's a very, very good unit. If it's a good player, they can just end the game with really tight harass, and you can scout with it, and you can also defend all ins with it. It's kind of like the Banshee, but maybe a little bit better. So I put it on A.
More utility than the Banshee in that it can reveal. It's really fast. It's a great scouting unit. It has stasis.
I had it at A. Right? Are we saying A?
Yeah,
this?
A.
Yeah, A.
What did you say, Ravi? I think a couple of people talked the same
I said
time.
A.
You said yours.
Yeah.
Okay. I think A is a solid decision for it. We'll just slap it there and move on. Battle cruisers. Sal, where are battle cruisers going to go?
I had it at C.
C.
I had it at C. The only reason it's not D tier is because there is a pretty solid opener you could do in TVC that's good. But like, try and find me a mass battle. I guess some of the Korean Terrans really like battle cruisers in TVT, but like if you watch the European Terrans, they usually don't build them. Like, and in TVP,
currently it's not very standard.
In
to make
TVP,
them
you'd
burst
actually, I don't know if you know this, but if you build a battle cruiser in TVP, the game uninstalls itself.
Whoa.
Okay. Oh wow,
So
I did not know that.
It's just not. No, like if you look at the highest level play, even like most of the non-highest level players on the NA ladder, EU ladder, like battle cruisers aren't built. They're just not built. They're built by memers and like people with a dream to make battle cruisers great one day, but they're just not good.
Sure. Ravi, where would you put them? So Sal, you said C, right? That's where you're.
C.
Okay.
I put it at B tier because even though I don't think like PvT they're the greatest, like I think they are still like as a one-off thing or like a weird like style. We're talking about all skill levels. I think they can be very frustrating to deal with as a Protoss player. I also think that they have a pretty great place in TVZ and like they can have an okay place in TVT late game and stuff. Like I think it's B.
All right, Neuro, what do you think? So we got B, we have C.
Neuro has them A. I hates them.
Yeah.
How did you know, dude?
Whoa!
Because you've complained about that unit. Like I know it makes you mauled, and like I know that all of your effort of Zenness goes towards not getting mad at the fucking.
It's an obnoxious unit.
Yeah,
it's very powerful, and then having it teleport and be invulnerable during the teleport is just silly.
Yeah, like the way that you're squinting there, where you're talking about it, like it's hurting you. like you were up there presenting that you just won like a great game, and then the BC got up out of his fucking chair and he walked up and slapped you in the face, like that. That's how you're.
It's a silly unit.
Yeah,
we'll go Battlecruiser B because it sliced it right down the middle, and Twitch chat goes for B as well.
That's fine. If you guys want to put it B, that's okay. That's okay.
I'm putting it B.
I can see that they're a bit better in TVT than maybe I'm giving them credit for.
B for Battlecruiser, fine.
B for Battlecruiser. Mutalisk. Ravi, where do Mutalisks belong?
M
the
for
flippy flappies.
Move on.
M for Muta.
I put them as A tier because I think when like they are capable of winning games basically on their own. They have definitely seen utility across all the matchups and stuff. Like I think that they reward like players, like you can just straight up outplay worse players with Mutalisks and like win games in a way such that they don't really have an opportunity to like catch
do
you with
anything
something.
about it.
Like you just kind of like you're just a better player, so you just win. Like I put them as A tier.
Okay, Neuro, what do you think on Muta? You have a very back and forth.
Muta on B mainly because of how counterable they are from Terran. They used to be better against Terran, but Terran's figured out how to put down a second factory and make more mines. So it feels like Zerg
They're
has
making a comeback though. Like they
Yeah.
are. I've played
A
way
bit.
more Muta players in the last
The nerf,
month or two.
the nerf to Mine Burrow does help them.
Yeah,
I feel
yeah,
like
yeah.
the
That's
Mine
why
Burrow
they
nerf
did that.
helps the
For
most
sure.
against mine drops, though. That gives you a little bit more time to pull stuff away. But yeah, I think with how good mutas are in ZVZ, B tier,
Yeah, they're very
fine.
good. Yeah.
I have them
Sal,
B.
what do you have them B as well?
I have them B.
I would agree
I have
with
them
that.
B just
yeah.
because they're just not as good as like they're playable. They're fine. Like if someone's playing Lingbane Muta, I'm not laughing at them. Like I'm not like, all right,
Mm-mm.
so like how are you here? It's
Mhm.
but like if you compare that to like Lurker at the moment and like Lingbane Lurker, it's just not the better way to play in my opinion. And that's just my opinion. And even at the pro level, you see this reflected, right? Like it just feels like a
Muta into lose.
pile you bust
whatever.
out. Yeah, not even
Yeah.
Muta and lose. Like you can see like Raynor will play it, but like it's
Yeah.
always like I play it less. If I have a best of 7, I play it once. I
Yeah.
won't play it. I won't play it 4 games. I won't.
The
do that.
amount
I'll
of
play
micro
Lurker most
you
of the
need
time.
from Muta is crazy high.
Yeah, but
and it
that's not
falls in-
really.
Mhm.
Yeah, if it had
Well,
a
we were
sick
kind of
micro,
using it
and then it was
before.
like if it had
Yeah.
sick micro, and then it was like the best that you could do. But even with the sickest micro, I don't think it's better than playing the other
Okay.
mid game styles.
That's
why
fair. I don't.
I
I
put it
missed
B.
where Twitch chat put it. Cobra, where was Twitch chat at on Muta?
Probably A, I think, right?
Probably A. I would have. Yeah, A or B. I would assume.
Twitch chat
Where
said
you
A.
guys put the flat. Yeah,
They said
chat
A.
So I think it's
So we're going.
tied.
Yeah, we're tied
So
between
then
A and
A.
B. Where did I put it? I don't actually know where I put Muta. I put it in A as well. I thought it was.
Yeah.
Has a
If
has a
chat
high
wants it at
possibility.
A, that's fine.
Well, let's do A.
Okay.
We'll do A.
It's-
All right. We need it.
A and B are pretty close. I feel like you can go.
They
You know,
are.
there's a clear line separating B and C and A and S, but A and B, like I think depending on the player stylistically, you could either see them or not.
Sure.
Right? Like
I would agree
imagine
with that.
trying to tell Roddy the Phoenix is B. He'll tell you to
Yeah.
take a fucking hike, right?
No, I
'Cause-
think you would actually. I think you would actually agree.
you
We're
think
talking.
so?
maybe.
Why would you build
Yeah.
a B tier unit every game? That's like
'Cause
why?
You enjoy it.
You know?
I put Prism
Yeah.
as S.
Ah.
Warp Prism. We
I
gotta
think
move on.
Prism is
We're
A.
running out of time.
S tier.
War Prism A. I put it at A.
I put it as S.
I
For
can.
utility,
I can.
I think
It's
you-
like A plus S. So if you want to put it in S, that's fine.
I think you can win games
Yeah.
off of the War Prism.
Absolutely.
I
you can.
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. S it is. Slapping it in. No further discussion.
Yeah.
Overseer.
I can agree.
C
The
tier.
overseer.
C
yeah,
tier.
Where
overseer.
did I put it?
Overseer.
I put it in A because if you get the upgrade, it's literally the fastest unit ever.
True.
But yeah, I mean, it's not really. I guess it's not really that good. Maybe I can live with B. B is fine. If chat wants to go with B,
I put it in B.
Sure. B.
Ooh, okay. All right. I was going to say why C instead of B,
I-
but it sounds like it wasn't a hard opinion.
Yeah. I just put it in C because it was like, I don't know. You don't really want to make a ton of overseers. It's like a unit you make, but you didn't really want to make it.
Yeah, it's like, is it better than the Observer? The answer is no.
Yeah.
Like it's not. It's not better than the Observer. So if we have the Observer at B, then
Mhm.
where are you going to put it, right? Because the Observer's cloaked, so it's clearly better than that. And it's like
Right.
the same thing, pretty much. It's got Contaminate, but like only a couple people use that.
Yeah. And Changeling is extremely good. I mean, like that's
Yeah,
that's,
and yeah, the
that's a
Changeling is actually really good.
ridiculously
So
unit. Yeah.
yeah, okay, so maybe you have a point. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
Changeling
Yeah.
block the ramp kick double.
Changeling
Changelings are
block
very good.
or just pop it on your army and literally know where you are for the rest of the game is pretty awesome. I think that Overseer, I think it was Cats who popularized it, making a bunch of them versus Widow Mines is such a sick thing to do with Overseer's
Yeah,
team.
and fly them over top.
And
then
I
just
feel
over
like
Underdark.
Overseer might be the answer for Ghosts, where you just make like literally like 50 Overseers and you cloud your army so their rapid fire snipes don't do anything.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I don't know
I don't
about
know.
that, but
I'm willing to
it's a-
believe.
sure.
Let's go to Raven though. It seems so. I put Overseer in B. I think that seems fair. Twitch chat put it in A though. So
Yeah, I could see that with the Changeling. I hadn't really considered the Changeling. If you consider the Changeling, yeah, maybe A is fine. But like obviously we had other people say B, so
yeah,
The Raven
we're-
I put in C for the ZVT perspective. It doesn't really do much. There was a period where the Raven was a pretty common part of the opener, but I very rarely see them.
I said B because I think ZVT, there are still some builds and stuff that you'll get the Raven and use it to clean up creep and stuff, but like specifically TVT, it's like one of the most important units.
Yeah.
And TVP, it also has a really solid place. Like
I think that the reason you could never ever put this unit in C is because if I have a Raven in any matchup, I'm happy. Like even TVZ, if I have a Raven, like sure I might not go out of my way to build one, but like if I Dorito dust your army, I'm a happy boy, right? Like if I have free creep clear, that makes me happy. Sure, it might not be worth it to build it all the time, but like I'm not actively trying to throw the unit in the trash can as fast as humanly possible.
I want to give a special shout out to that patch with the Seeker Missile when it was super overpowered and you could spam your entire army.
Yeah. We're not there anymore, but yeah, absolutely.
That would have been the S tier.
Shout out to the longest Challenger qualifier that took roughly like 5 hours or something for one game.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that was fun.
So Raven B, is that where we
that unit was
on
S
here?
plus.
Yeah, B is fine.
That Raven was S plus. It was the best unit ever.
Raven to B next.
Just blow up everything.
Raven to B. Reaper.
I had it at A.
Oh, I had it at C. But I understand why you had it at A and I had it at C, Sal, because
because of how we define the
This
tiers.
is fundamentally different on how we're defining the
on the tiers.
I put it on B. I think it's like a really good opener unit, but it does require some pretty good control. And for people who don't have the multitasking of also making workers and supply at home while microing the Reaper, you're just going to trip yourself up with it. So,
yeah, I mean, it's the reason I put it in A is because you build them in every matchup 100% of the time, and it serves its role in an excellent fashion, and like you absolutely need it. And if you're really good, you can distinguish yourself from everyone else by killing units with it.
Yeah.
But
I'd be fine with A, but I put it in B.
Do I think that it? Yeah, I mean, B is a place I would accept it because it obviously does not scale in any way, shape, or form except for one cheese in PvT, which is like pretty decent.
Yeah,
but like I think it serves its role perfectly, and you play it in all three matchups 100% of the time. There's no question you build a Reaper usually, like at some point.
I'm okay with it. I also just want to say I think there is like a weird behavior that I feel like I never see, and I understand why Terrans have enough shit to do with micro. Yeah. But I would love just once I want to see a player in like the mid game or late game of like a TVP or something try making just like 2 or 3 Reapers and see what happens when they start throwing the KD8 charges out in the middle of like a mid game or late game engagement, and you have units literally getting stunned in a massive army fight where damage is all dealt extremely fast. I've always wanted to see that, and I understand why we don't.
They die too fast. Like they just have such a low HP that when they like go forward to do the charge, they just instantly evaporate.
So this is actually one reason why, like, granted, I don't think this is worthwhile to like ever do or like prioritizes like a patch, but I think it'd be really interesting if they increase the range of the KD8 charge by like 1 or something, so you're just behind some of the other army units and you could throw it out.
Yeah. I mean, this is the same reason that the Raven is actually shit in TVZ, because like even though in theory it's great, the reason that it's bad is because it just dies if anything touches it.
Yeah.
And it also gets touched so easily, and it's faster than everything else. So like not only is it in front all the time, but it's fast. So like, and anything that hits it dies. So like unless you're actually like Maru, and even Maru can't keep them alive. Like it's just same thing with the Reaper. Reaper's faster, and it's like got no health. And
I totally get it.
Okay, well I put Reaper in B. It seems like that was about right.
I can agree with that. That's fine.
Twitch was split between A and C won out. So it was there was almost nobody that said B. They either said A or they said C. So we have some Ravi Camp and Sal Camp in the chat. Roach, we're on Roach now. Where would you put Roach, Mr. Neuro? How do you feel about him?
I put the Roach in. Wait, where did I put this?
I'm curious.
I put it in B tier. B tier. It's a unit that ends up being made by necessity in many situations, so it's not a bad unit. It's also not a high DPS unit, and there are situations where it's fairly unwise to make. So, kind of a middle of the road for me. I like the Roach.
Okay.
I think it's a pretty cool unit and fun to make. I play it in ZVZ. Sometimes I'll play it against Terran, and then it's like a unit that you have to make against Protoss, but it's not necessarily because the Roach is so good. It's because of the Protoss 2-base power spike. It hits at a certain time where the Roach is the only option.
Yeah. Sal, what do you think?
I had it at A because it's just playable in every matchup, and it's like, you build a lot of them and seem pretty good. But like in TVZ, you don't really. I don't think it's like great. It's more of like
they
cheesy
fall off
all-in.
very hard.
Yeah, they fall off really hard. But I mean, it's a whole style to play Roach Ravager. A lot of people base even at the highest level, like Dark plays it a lot, Rogue play it a lot. Like it's played. And then in obviously in ZVP, it's necessary. But again, like I understand the idea that you wouldn't really want them. You kind of build them because you have to. But any unit where like you have to have them or you have them every game, like it can't be B. Right?
Yeah.
Like it can't be low. Like you have to have them.
I mean, the Reaper we put in B. So
Yeah, but the thing is that the Roach then from there the Roach is like even when you're trading them off, they can get value. You can get Burrow. You can do like, all sorts of other shit. The Reaper has exactly one role ever. It has no versatility.
I'm happy for my Roaches. Y'all want to upgrade them to A? Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'd put them A.
All right,
What
let's
do you
go.
have?
But I think that a non-insignificant number of people could probably just get Grandmaster, and by mono-battling Roaches, I think says a lot.
Yeah.
In
you
every
put him in A
matchup.
as well, Ravi?
Yeah, A.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm a Roach stan. I love Roaches and I love playing Roaches, so I'm happy to put them in A.
I don't think that you can like I don't think that they scale well enough to be an S tier, but an A makes sense.
Yeah.
I think Twitch chat put him in C. No, they put him in B. Sorry. Well, yeah, I think.
Yeah, you're wrong. You're wrong, Twitch chat. It's A.
Yeah, it's definitely an A.
It's
SCVs.
I had them as S.
I put all the workers in S.
I put
Sure,
SCVs in A. I just because I wanted to delineate that I think probes are better than SCVs.
Yeah. I could see
That
that.
makes sense.
They can repair. They're
I had
pretty
not
chunky,
considered them.
and they
I did not
also
consider-
have a certain kind of value in that they're more expendable with mules on the table.
Yeah. That you can,
that
the
point.
fact that you can get rid of them is kind of like a buff to them, sort
Yeah.
of like
Mhm.
the fact that you don't need them.
The
You
fact
can get
that
rid
they're
of them, and they're
expendable.
chunkier than the other ones at the same
Yeah.
time.
45 HP. Yeah, that's true. Whenever I play random at the end of my streams, and I play Protoss against Terran, and I'm trying to harass SCVs, and I go, these things are immortal. Well, how can I not ever kill these things? Yeah,
They're pretty good. They're pretty good offensively, which is not something you could say for either of the other two workers. Like,
no.
That is true.
yeah,
Very seldomly can you use drones. I mean, ZVZ, there's obviously
I
brushes
give them
you can
S.
do, but okay.
Yeah.
So so you're bumping up to an S on SCV?
I was already S on.
Oh,
SCV.
sorry, Neuro, you had it at S. Do you want to move that at all, or you think
Yeah.
S still solidly?
S.
Yeah. Ravi had it at A, but
I
I
had it
think
at
that
A, yeah.
instead of delineating between the two, like Pro and SU, I feel like they can just both be S because like
Okay.
I think they both their extra thing they're both good at are different enough that they're just both good. I think better than
And
the
Twitch
drone.
chat has them solidly in S tier. I mean, like
Yeah,
very, very,
very much
solid.
All right.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'm fine with SCV and S. It also, again, it makes sense. Sentry. Where are we putting Sentry, Robbie? Where do you want to put him?
I put it at B tier. I think it's like a solid utility unit. I'm never sad that I'm never like, I have a sentry. Oh no, what do I do with this horrible piece of shit unit? I'm just like, I have a sentry. Like, yeah, I'll use Guardian Shield during the fight, or I'll throw out some force fields. And sometimes it can save your bacon. But it's not, going for sentries is a very concrete thing that you're saying, like, I am not teching during this period of time, because that's a lot of gas. Like, there's a huge hard trade-off there. So I'm very solidly in B on Sentry.
Okay. Sal, what do you think?
I had it at A because I think you build it in all matchups, and then you've got Force Field, which is a good terrain editor, and then you've got Guardian Shield, which reduces damage. But I think the thing that kind of puts it above just being B, because like you build them, but you don't want too many, and you can live without them, is the fact that you can hallucinate units, right? So like I think that the fact that when they reduce, I think they reduce the cost of hallucinate, right? Like the fact that you can just hallucinate a Phoenix and like get a read at like pretty much any time makes it pretty good. It makes it that if you lose all your overseers, you're fucked pretty much. But if you lose like your observers, you still have that which is nice. And it gives you the ability to sort of, scout early on if you want to go Phoenix or you want to go some other style that doesn't have an observer. You can use it. It's very versatile, so you don't have to just play it one way. There's many things you can do, and they're always pretty decent, but not like amazing. So I would say A, but you guys can do whatever.
Can I ask you something, Sal?
Yeah.
If I took that exact clip of almost everything you said and just thought you were talking about the Raven, would that be inaccurate?
No.
So
they're a similar role.
Huh?
Mm-hmm.
They're a similar role. It's a support unit.
No, but the Raven, you just don't build TVZ, right? Which so that statement I just said may be true of the Raven in PvT and in TvT, and in TvT it's even better than that. But the fact that you literally don't build the Raven in TVZ unless there's one build that you do, but even I stopped playing it even so. It's just not. This is not played. Whereas the Sentry is built in every matchup, right? Yeah.
Yeah. With Ravagers as the mainstay. With the Ravagers as a mainstay, I put it in C. But with what you said about the other matchups, I think B is fine.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that I'll just never see a Raven in TVZ at the moment, and that's why I put it in B. Whereas the Sentry, I'd put A. But that's chat says B.
I think chat said B. I missed it once again, but I believe chat went with B as well.
Sentry B. Stalker.
I'm gonna throw it in there. Yes, let's move to the Stalker. Neuro, how do you feel about Stalkers? Where should it be?
Stalker, I put pretty low just for the versus Zerg matchup. It's a unit that you can counter with mass lings, so it doesn't really feel that oppressive. I was saying whenever I was putting this in C tier for myself that I feel like Terrans and Protoss players will put it higher because it's a mainstay of PvP and Terrans get all in with it a lot. So, if it was B or A, I wouldn't really protest too much, but it's not super good against Zerg.
I put it as A. I guess I would put it as maybe S even if it wasn't for PvZ, but like A is A because you build a lot of them in PvP specifically, and then in TvP they're a standard unit. Like you just build them all the time, and they're pretty good.
I mean,
Blink all-ins are good. Blink's just good.
You definitely still see them in PvZ. It's not like they're
they
but that's show up. Like they're
the fact
definitely
that they're
made.
the fact that they're not looked on the same way, I can see why you wouldn't put them S. But
they're not as
like,
crushingly good as the other units in S. Sure, yeah. Ravi, what do you feel?
I put them in B, and this is partially because I think Stalkers, unless you are controlling them really well, like you really just don't get, like outside of the early and mid game stage of PvT, and I would say like a good chunk of maybe some of the PvZ, like PvP, early game, like I don't think you get much value unless you're like just controlling them really well. So that's like there is a requirement for you to do a good job with a lot of like the micro and stuff. And they just like straight up don't trade cost efficiently versus most of their like other counterparts. Like they aren't going to trade well versus like the tier 1.5 units of Terran like Marauders and stuff. They don't trade well like cost efficiently without like much better micro and blink and stuff versus roaches and whatnot. Like I think you have to do a really good job with them. I'd be okay with A, but I put them at B.
And chat's good with S or A, so I'd say A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine with that.
Okay, let's go for A then. A for Stalkers. The siege tanks. Sal, what do you think?
I had the tank at A.
A.
Yeah.
A.
It just has too clear cut.
The spot is perfect.
Yeah, and I just don't think it's as good as the other S tier units.
But it's really good at what it does.
But it is really good. Like if you wanted to put it S, I wouldn't bat an eyelash. But like, I don't know. It just has so many things that are good against it. And like in PvT, like I don't really think you build like 3, but then it kind of feels like you don't really want them. Like I guess the question is at the moment the meta's kind of changing. I think like maybe in PvT you're gonna see them more. Like everyone seems to be building like 3 or 4. But before, like the tank was only used to defend against Blinkstalker all-ins, and then you would only use it because you had them from there. I think they'd be an S tier unit if you built them every game versus Protoss, and that was your intention, and you did it because you thought it was good. But aside from that, TVT, they're absolutely S. In TVZ, they're either S or A+. And now it's TVP that makes me wonder where they belong.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That TVP would hold them back from being just a clearly S unit, and A makes sense.
Yeah, they're really, really good.
They're really good, but that one matchup, just the fact that they don't have a great spot, it makes sense, I guess.
I feel like they're either S or the first A unit. They're the best A unit.
Okay, I'll put them in the front of the line for A then.
Yeah, I feel like that's where they belong.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How about Tempests? How do you feel about Tempest, Sal?
I had the Tempest at C, but I don't know. I don't think it's really good at anything, to be honest.
I once saw 3 Tempests lose in a fight to a Corruptor, so I put them in D tier.
Okay, yeah.
They're so flimsy that when I see a Tempest, I'm like, oh, it's not a carrier. Praise God.
Yeah.
Okay. Ravi.
They have a role which makes them better than the Ultra.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. Ravi, you say C. I say C.
I would tolerate a C.
I think C is a good spot.
Yeah, because the question is it as bad as an Ultra?
No.
They fly. They must be at least a little better than an Ultra.
Because
and you can kind of they can close games out, and they have a place in that way. If you have a turtle situation, and 3 of them can do that. They can actually work on units.
the reason why they're not D is because with the Void Ray nerf. Now the best proxy strategy versus Terran is proxy.
Is proxy Tempest. Fair enough.
And everyone is very rusty against defending them right now.
Easy.
Right. Yeah, all right.
Okay, Tempest C. I think that one is very, very easy, very clear. Medivacs. Ravi, where do Medivacs go?
I put them as A tier. Insane amount of utility for harassments. I know Sal is shaking his head because he doesn't know what a medevac does. He's never stopped his army long enough to actually ever heal.
You think I'm going to put them worse?
Oh, you thought they were
You're fucking crazy. They're an S tier unit.
That's just surprising to me because you literally don't use them. You just have them around your army.
Yeah. Sometimes I forget to build them.
3 times
I've been working on it.
And you're like, oh, why is my army
I've been working on my healthcare, buddy.
Oh.
Okay? My units they're going to be healing real soon.
Okay.
All right? But they are S.
I think the Medivac next to the Marine is the most iconic Terran unit.
If the Medivac literally stopped, if all it had was boost and it literally didn't heal anything, it'd still be A+/S. The fact that I can put my units in your fucking base, at the speed of light, is pretty damn good.
Okay.
On its face. The fact that it runs around healing my entire army like a bunch of chads, S.
You sold me, actually. Yeah, I'm good with that.
S.
Okay.
If it didn't have boost, it'd be significantly worse. But the fact that nothing catches it with boost it's S. S.
The one thing that I'll say of why I didn't originally put S, which I'm okay with writing off, is that I feel like Starport build time is a resource, and keeping production of medevacs and keeping them out means you're not making Vikings or Liberators or a lot of the other stuff. I feel like it's a hard call. It's not just just always have more medevacs.
No, the thing is, it's the other way around. It's why the fuck are these other shit units getting in the way of me building more medevacs? That's the truth. It's why don't I have enough medevacs? It's because he's building 8 Colossus. I better build some Vikings. Man, it gets in the way of my medevacs. Or why am I not building medevacs at TVT? Because if I stop building Vikings, then that means that I'm going to lose the air superiority fight, and that means I'm going to lose to the tanks. So I want to build them. It's that everything else gets in the way. I want them more than I want the other Starport units. 100% of the time.
Fair. Okay, Medivacs S. I think that makes sense. Thors. What about Thors, though, Sal?
I put the Thor as a B tier unit because it is I'm not in TVP. I'm genuinely upset that I've built a Thor. I'm not happy about that. like, there's no reason for me to build this Thor. I don't know why it's here. It's lost from a different game on the map.
Fat-fingered it.
Yeah, but in TVZ, like, I could always make do with a Thor or two, like the sick versus a lot of stuff, and that's kind of nice. In TVT, they're like, I mean, why? But I kind of understand why. It's like, oh, so you built Liberators before I had air superiority, so I have a Thor. But, like, they're actually worse. So they have a place. It's just not a very good place. But, like, they're good enough in TVZ that I can't put them... They're better than the Tempest. They're better than Tempest. They're better than the Swarm Host. They're better than Ultra. They're better than BC. Like, they're just...
Okay.
They're like B-, like the last B unit, maybe, in my mind.
Okay. How about you, Neuro? What do you think?
For the Terran versus Zerg matchup, I put them at S for how many different Zerg units they counter and how easy they are to use. So I gave them a big plus for ease of use and a big plus for them countering all of Zerg's tier 3 without micro.
So
the Ghost has to cast a spell. Right, so if they're bad at the other matchups, I'm fine with them being bumped down.
TVP, they are actually like they're literally the amount of real estate they take on the command card. Like in TVP, it's taking up valuable pixels that could be on the screen instead, even if they're empty pixels.
So you want to put it B?
I would put it B, but chat says
Feardragon, what do you think? What do you think, Feardragon?
No one can convince me otherwise. I played a bunch of team games. It was my first experience of really trying to play a lot of Terran, and I realized how good Thors were. This is just shy of S tier. It's at A tier for me, because if there was any unit I would want to have 200 maxed out of more than any other unit in the game, it would be the Thor. I think that they are absurd if you just have an unbelievably maxed out army. And I'm 50% memeing, but also 50% is me is just like, holy shit.
The damage, the range, and the effective health.
Yeah, it's like, unless the only thing that I'm like, maybe a maxed out Thor army isn't the best army in the game, is a maxed out Immortal army versus a ground army. But like,
okay,
that's the only thing that I can think of. Like, whoa.
Take it back. A maxed out Siege Tank army annihilates it. It's not close. You can go into Unit Tester right now, and you can siege all your siege tanks, and the Thors get evaporated. It's not close.
One aspect that makes the Thor a lot better than Zerg tier 3 units is their AI. Just the AI in StarCraft prioritizing casters and then air and then ground makes them able to just A move and shoot all the right stuff pretty much all the time, which I think is a huge plus for the unit.
Yeah, you really don't have to micro them a ton.
They're going to shoot the Vipers, and then they're going to shoot the Broods, and then they're going to shoot your ground, which is exactly what they want to do. And the Terran doesn't have to like right click and be like, "Oh, I want to get Vipers next." You just A move, and the Thor is smart enough to do
for you.
Yeah. The problem is that TVZ right now is mostly still Viper Lingbane. No, not Viper Lingbane. Lingbane Lurker. And as long as that's true, the Thor's kind of got no place. But like against air, anything air related, yeah, it's amazing. Right? Like, but if your opponent plays Lingbane, Viper Lurker, like if you build a Thor, you're crazy. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
So it just doesn't make any sense. So that's given the current meta, I don't think it's really that good. But I think the part of the only reason that is the current meta is because the Thor just shits on Broodlords and also shits on Muta, right? It's kind of what has kept it from being that way. So I guess if you're looking at like the logical chain of things, it is that good in TVZ. It's just that you don't play the thing that it builds.
Thor and A? Are we feeling there? Thor A?
I would put it in A. Sal wants to argue it down, but
let's go.
No,
A.
I would be okay with bottom of A if you want to do that. That's okay.
We'll go bottom of A.
Yeah, I think it's better than the B tier units. If I'm looking at the B tier units, the only B tier unit I think is even close is the Colossus. But like, yeah.
Thor and A then. Viking. Neuro, where is Viking going?
I put the Viking in B tier. Mainly, it's like a Corruptor for Terran, where it's a unit that you make because you have to, not because you really want to. And they're pretty thick, so they trade decently well. The Viking has more range than a Corruptor, which is nice. And they have the potential for ground harass, which is not great, but it is something that's on the table.
They have a little bit of something there.
Yeah, and just the opener of the Viking clearing overlords and stuff.
Yeah. TBZ. So like the thing is that in TBZ it has a roll, like period. So that makes it decent. But then in TBP it's a staple. You absolutely need it. And in TBT it's better than a staple. It's probably one of the best units in the game. If you have more of them, you generally are going to win. Like I know if I'm looking at a game of TBT and my one guy has 15 Vikings and the other guy has 7, I'm pretty sure I know who's going to win. Like I just look at the Viking count and I know who's winning. I know how the game's probably gone and I know who's going to run away with it in the end. As long as they're careful. I don't think it's S because I don't think in TBZ it's got any role aside from clearing currently anyway, it doesn't have any role aside from clearing overlords, which I mean, if your opponent literally researches overlord speed, that's completely worthless. So it like only is good against the Zerg who skip that. And if that doesn't happen, it's literally a waste of resources. It's not good at all.
So where did you put it? Sorry, C.
I put it A.
You put it A. Okay.
I put it A. Oh, in TBT, it's insanely good, and in TBP, it's an absolute must, and it's also very good. And but like in TBZ, it has one role that you can actually do every game if you want to, but it's like that role is countered by just researching overload speed.
Got it. Fear Dragon, where did you wind up with Vikings?
I put it at B tier. I think it's obviously very important in TVT, but like I think TVZ, kind of what Sal said. I actually think TVP is also just kind of like
you have to have them versus Colossus, 100%.
Yeah, versus Colossus, but it's also it's to me it's not a unit that you're making because you're like I think this complements my army. This is like shit, they made Colossus. Okay, I have to make these now.
Well, I put it better than that in TVP now that they do extra damage versus mechanical.
Yeah,
like before, I'd 100% agree, but it's utility post the fight is much better than it used to be
because of the warp prism and stuff.
Well, no, because now now if they have stalkers and an army of gateway units left, and you're like land the Vikings, they do extra damage. It's not as bad as it used to be.
That's fair. Yeah.
They have. I
don't think they're like C or D tier. I think that they're like B tier. They're like, hey, yeah, I have it. I'm like, okay, I'll find a use for it.
Yeah.
Twitch I put them in A.
Twitch I put it A, dude. They're so good in TVT. Like they're 100%. Like probably aside from the siege tank in TVT, they're probably the best unit because of how much they give you if you have them lead.
I'm fine with A.
Okay. I think we'll go with A. We'll practice our compromises here. Viper. We only have 3 left. Viper, Neuro. How do we feel about Vipers?
Viper is A. It basically became the late game caster for Zerg over the Infestor. It flies. It has anti-ground. It has anti-air. It can pull stuff. It's a pretty good unit.
Okay. Sal?
Ravi, what'd you put? Oh, me? Oh, okay. I put it A.
Either one. Yeah.
I put it A.
Okay. Ravi?
A. He puts it A.
Yeah. I'm hand signaling, but I'm guessing Apoptosis is busy.
Oh, sorry. I'm like looking at like 3 monitors, like let me make sure everything is.
Probably doesn't have her cameras up.
Yeah, I'm looking all around everywhere. Okay, A as well. Everybody's an A. I think A makes a lot of sense for Vipers. They're really good at what they do. But yeah, you wouldn't make them every single matchup, every single composition. Sure. Void Ray. This is post-nerf Void Ray. Robbie, where are Void Rays going to go?
B tier. I think that they're still like okay. Again, like going back to my ranking tier system. B is I have them. I'll find a use for them. Like they're okay.
Are we talking Void Ray?
Yeah,
Void Ray.
Pre-nerf A, but post-nerf B.
Okay. Neuro.
I put it in A mainly because it was S before the nerf. The unit is still the same, which is really important to consider for like a 200 supply situation. But the like Void Ray hit squads boosting down my hatches doesn't happen anymore, really. So that's a huge relief, and I'm really grateful for the nerf. But it's still a good unit, and it does keep Protoss really safe. You can more or less take your 3rd Nexus for free with a Void Ray over it. So, meh. A.
Okay, let's see what Twitch chat says. Looks like they're leaning towards A. So are we going for A here, or are we wanting to go B?
They went A by one.
Okay. I'm okay with A.
I mean, if you want to put it A, it was definitely A pre-nerf. Now Void Rays are like, in a month and a half, once all of the people who were playing Void Rays have either quit or like descended so far into the depths that I'll never see them again. Like I won't see Void Rays again in PvP unless you're like a carrier master who just wants them.
We'll say A minus B maybe if we had more time to discuss it out.
If it's that B, good in PvZ still, then okay. And if in PvP it's played, that's cool.
And the last one, the last unit we have here, the memeiest unit, possibly the Widowmine. Ravi, where's the Widowmine going?
I put a A tier. Like, I could see someone make an argument for S or something, especially if you used to like talk about below Grandmaster or below pro level play. My God, Widowmines are unbelievably frustrating and stuff. So I could be convinced for S tier. But otherwise, I think they're just like, they're A tier. There's clearly like some downsides to them and everything, but like, yeah.
Yeah. I put them the highest A tier below Siege Tank, especially post nerf. And the only reason that I would put them below that and not even an S is just because of how they're not played TVT at all.
Okay.
Like,
sure.
At most, you'll see one. Like, obviously, you get your NA memers and stuff, but at most, you'll see one. And they'll build it defensively at the start, but that's like a newer build. Like you just don't see them in TVZ. They're obviously a staple.
Yeah.
But in TVP, they're also still really good. It's just a question of like the fact that the Siege Tank's built in all three matchups right now. Right, just puts it a little bit higher.
Right.
I mean, I don't think if you're gonna say that the Siege Tank is A, I don't think you can say that the Widowmine is S. Because they serve extremely similar roles.
Right.
I think one of them is a lot more dummy-proof than the other.
The mine can more, and it can kill air, which I think.
Yeah, killing air is definitely a big deal. I just don't think that being able to kill air is like outweighed by not being played in one of the three matchups. I just don't think.
Where did you put that logic? I put it in S for how it works against Zerg, but
it's super fucking good against Zerg. It'd be an S unit 100% if all you were looking at was TVZ, and it would be probably an S unit if all you were looking at was TVP. But it's like not there in.
You think TVT drags it down enough to put it in A?
I mean, why would I build one ever in TVT?
Sure,
right. That's just. Right?
How are we feeling about A?
Twitch, no universe.
Twitch chat says S. They think they're the most broken unit in the game, apparently.
Yeah, it's not that good. I can understand why, especially because of hitting air and harassment. I could see that.
It's also a very
Twitch chat is not very good at StarCraft, so
it's a very emotionally salient unit too.
Not reacting
because you have situations where like you lose the game to 2 mine hits, and I think that stuff sticks with people and they never forget it.
Not only do you lose the game, you lose your sanity and morale.
You gotta remember when it comes to like early mine drops against Protoss and stuff, like that a lot of people get triggered by and tilted by, which is perfectly fair. Like I lose to that kind of shit all the time, but like the value of the Widowmine is greatly reduced by how good your opponent is.
Sure. Okay, so
like there's a world where I drop 4 mines in a mineral line, and the game is over, and there's also a world where I drop 8 Widowmines in a mineral line, and I kill 1 worker, and that is not up to me. It is up to my opponent. Right?
Okay, fair.
That's all. It's like, but the siege tank's not like that. If I park 5 tanks outside of your base, like bronze or GM, like, you're in shit, and it doesn't really matter how you feel about it.
Sure.
Right.
Okay. Mine in A seems to make sense. Sorry, Twitch chat.
I put the mine right below the siege tank. Make sure it's at the front of the queue. It's better than
all right.
It's better than most of these other A tier units.
All right, fair. It's jumping up a couple of places. All right, so this is our list. We've reached the end. It only took us. You guys were laughing at my 2.5 hours. Guess how long we've been doing this for? Oh, about 2.5 hours. Look at that.
After we had to get fed up, though.
After an hour in, we realized we had only covered 8 units, and I did the math to calculate. We were on a pace for 6.5 hours and 40 minutes.
That's super true.
Yeah, we would have kept going forever.
We had a lot we wanted to talk about, and we really wanted to give a fair shake to each unit. And I appreciate the conversation. I was worried it was going to go, everybody says the same thing. So I'm happy we had some good discussions.
Yeah, I don't know how the pros would feel about this unit list, but I think it's actually not bad. It reflects quite similarly.
The post-tier list clarity, do you see any you'd want to adjust into a different spot? Because I did that after I made my list. I looked at it all together, and I went, wait a second, that doesn't make sense. There's no way this unit can be with this unit.
For me, it's not like a specific unit. This is my personal viewpoint of things. I think S tier has too many units. I think that
But they're all so good.
Mine had 19, so I think it's fine.
So here's my reasoning on it, is that the fact that I feel like I could break S tier up into S and like double S tier or something, and it would actually be like totally reasonable. I don't even think we'd have that much arguments if we had an extra tier for that.
I actually agree with that.
S is
I agree with that.
Too flooded.
Sure, okay.
And I think we don't have very many units in C tier. I think we probably could have bumped some stuff down from like B or A and bump some stuff down from S.
I think the only thing you could change is a double S tier where those units are borderline broken. And
go ahead, sorry.
In that case, I'd like put just like the Marine, the Queen, and maybe like the Baneling. Because they're like, they're all so insanely good for their cost and just incredible. But that would be like if you had a double S tier, that's all I put there. If you wanted to like have a tier with just like a couple of units that are really good. Like, and I'm not saying that those units are like way better than the other units in S. It's just that for the cost that you pay, they're ridiculous.
If we get the list back up, if you had to change one unit, so each of you had to move one unit, what would you move and where would you move it to? Ravi, let's start with you. Where would you move one of these units? Just one of them.
I think I would move Zealot to B tier.
Okay.
That's fair.
All right. That's fair. Neuro, how about you?
I'm looking.
Mind you, Twitch chat, you can't see D. It's just Ultralisk. So I'm almost going to name
Ultra.
It's just the Ultra. Solitary and alone right now.
I put the Broodlord at D tier. I feel like I need to do some quest or project to try to make the unit feel like it earns that C tier for me, because I just can't. I just look at it there and I'm like,
you don't belong here.
I remember when I could hit the 7 Broodlord timing against Protoss like Ravi's talking about, but that was before Protoss figured out the power of carriers. And after that point, it just feels like I have 7 Broodlords in a base race, or I have 7 Broodlords versus Skytoss. So that would probably be my adjustment. I will do some homework, though, and I'll try to fully upgrade it. I want to try 3-3-3 for the Broodlord and then see if I change my mind. But that would be my pick.
Right.
Sal, how about you? Where would you move? What unit would you move and where would you move it to?
I don't know. I like the list as it is, and I think I was convinced of most of these units that have like gone to where they have gone to. But if I had to move any of them, maybe I'd put the Ravager at A. I don't know if...
Really? Wow, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it makes the most sense from the Terran Mind standpoint, I think.
Yeah, I think it's really good ZVP.
Matchup is versus Terran for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
think it's 06 ZVP. It's just ZVZ I don't know about. And then ZVT, I don't know. Like, build them, but...
I think me personally, I would move Hellbat to C. That's the only adjustment I would make.
I agree with chat that I do not think the Ravager is a better unit than the tank or the mine. But I do not think that the tank and the mine are S.
Well, I mean, the Ravager counters those units, right? So, kind of.
The Ravager is an all 3 matchup spammable unit.
Yeah. Which is the difference between the tank and the mine, is that you only would do it in 2. I think it was where we landed on that. Think?
Yeah.
I want to point out that Terran
has
no units in C and D.
That's just true. The only C and D units are Protoss and Zerg. And way more Zerg than Protoss. What were you saying, Ravi? Sorry, we kind of cut you off.
Oh, I was just saying, now that we're all done with this, I just want to say I don't agree with the philosophy that units that are, like, used in all three matchups is a good guidance for how good a unit is. I feel like units can be highly tiered ranked, even if they're only, like, hyper powerful in just one or two matchups.
Well, and that just, I mean, I think this was a great exercise in StarCraft 2.
Yeah.
With how serious it is, it's still very subjective to each person and how good something is or how bad it is, and that's kind of neat to see, honestly. But I appreciate you guys for sticking out the 2.5 hours of ranking with me. I think we came up with a pretty decent list at the end of all of this. If you guys have a few more minutes, I'd love to answer some Patreon questions with you. Of course, guys, if you don't know, the Pylon Show is powered by Patreon. This is how we afford to do all of this. If you guys could check out patreon.com/The Pylon Show, we should have a link coming up for you there in the chat. And a big shout out and thank you to our wonderful Patreon supporters. There will be some adjustments from the Patreon happening soon, so keep an eye out for that. But I think we can just move over to the questions. If you do support on Patreon, you can get your questions answered by our esteemed guests at the end of the show. And today it looks like we only have one. So I will go ahead and read that now. Polly asks, Ola here. So after some time, what's your conclusion of the new patch? Any new meta yet? If that was already answered, Fear Dragon, any new ideas for playing StarCraft 2? Larva already played with his foot. Any other parts of your body you want to play with? Facial expressions, maybe. Take care, dudes. So let's do the first part first. What's your guys' conclusion of the new patch so far? How are you enjoying it?
Protoss is playing ground again.
That's true.
Wait, they have ground units?
They have ground units, and they can attack and defend with them.
Nice.
And this is why your Broodlord transition is finally going to start working now, Neuro.
Let's not get carried away.
That's going to make it earn
Let's not get carried away here.
Protoss is kind of much more forced to play ground, at least in PvZ. The age of just spamming Void Rays and only Void Rays seems to
Ogre
actively be behind us. Fingers crossed. Go ahead.
Can I say something about the Dark Templar change? Because Sal and I got into a little tussle before the show started, so we'd save it. We didn't talk about it. All right. I just want to say,
oh no,
as a DT fanboy and everything,
enthusiast,
a lot of people are like, "Oh, aren't you so sad about the Dark Templar nerf?" And I'm like, it didn't do anything. Like,
it's because all of
these Terran players are just like, it's gonna help against DT sniping planetaries. First of all, if DTs are sniping a planetary, it's not like 2 DTs whittling away at the planetary, right? It's like 8 or 10 DTs, and you need to get out of there with all of the DTs. So if you're blinking offensively, you're already assuming that there's no defensive units already over there. Like, it's not like the planetary is not there to kill 1 or 2 of the DTs, right? You really need to do a lot more damage. The other part of it is like, they're like, 0.75 seconds more time to react. Think about it. If you're getting the alert that the DTs are attacking your planetary, they are already fully covering the surface area of your planetary. You can't get the area to repair. That 0.75 seconds isn't going to help. And if the DTs were just walking by and you were noticing them on the minimap, then they didn't blink in the first place, so they don't have to wait 0.75 seconds. Like, what do these Terran players think changed with this? Oh my god, I'm like cackling. And I am not alone in this. I want to say I've had multiple other Protoss players I've talked with, and they're just like, yeah, I don't know what the Terran players are on about, but like, I'm not going to say anything if they're happy.
You want to know why it's different? I'll explain it to you.
Tell us, Sal.
Because before the nerf, even if I put 2 mines in a Liberator or 2 mines and 2 Liberators and a CC to try and make a wall, and I literally paid the biggest, buffest, jacked chads to stand at the outside of my PF to block it. Do you want to know what the DT enthusiasts would do? The same thing they do if I had nothing there. They just blink on top of it and kill it. And there's literally nothing I could do. There's no way to stop it.
Trading 8 DTs for a planetary fortress.
No one does
Good
8 DTs. It's like 12 DTs, and you just YOLO onto PF.
for a planetary.
They don't die. They don't die. You literally run up to the mines like a Chad, and then you blink after the mines go off, and you just click the PF out of existence, and then you run away, losing like 3 DTs. It's like so hard.
That's true.
Pre-patch.
The 0.75 seconds will mean that after the DTs blink and the Widow Mines have gone off, they'll wait there, have a little chuckle.
No, what'll happen
the Widow
is
Mines miss, and then kill the planetary and run off.
what'll happen is that now you can orient the mines on the other side of the PF, and so they can't just set them off in advance.
You could have done that anyway.
No, you can't do that, because then they could just run up and attack it. The delay makes it so it's a much harder choice.
Run up and attack it? They're cloaked.
Yeah, I mean, you have turrets there. You can always run up and attack the PF.
No.
Dude,
The
it makes
Mines
the
are cloaked.
stalling means that you can actually kill DTs before the PF dies. That is not true before. There is no number of...
I want to ask you something, Sal. How long do you think it takes 12 DTs to kill a planetary?
They instantly kill it. It takes like 2 swipes. Like,
no, okay.
that's
I want you to know, with the command center is fully surrounded with a 360-degree surface area and have +3 weapons against a planetary fortress, and let's just say has building armor. The DTs will not even kill it with 1 swipe. Then
It takes
so
2 swipes.
You think it takes 2 swipes? No, it takes like 6 or 7 swipes. Those
but you decrease the number.
The reason you're losing your planetaries.
You decrease the number of DTs much more than I think you're giving it credit for, because you have to have defenses. You can't have just the PF. The nerf doesn't help with that. The nerf doesn't make it so you can just defend with the PF. The nerf makes it so that the units I left before that could do nothing now actually do something. They actually kill DTs. Whereas before, my PF died. One way or the other, it was just going to disappear. I've literally seen Terrans have 2 Liberators, mines, and 2 fucking command centers on each side of the PF, and it dies anyway. Doesn't matter. But now it's not the case. You can actually trade more against them than you could before because of the nerf. It makes a bigger difference than you're giving it credit for.
I agree you may kill like 1 more DT of the 12 or something. I agree it will make a little bit of a difference. I don't think you're saving the planetary fortress suddenly because of the 0.75 second decrease.
You're not you may not save it, but you're gonna kill at least 4. Like I'd imagine like 4, because you got the 2 libs. If you have 2 libs parked over top,
half of a shot off extra from each of the Liberators.
I don't want to interrupt, Neuro. I'm going to load up some Dota 2 if you want to just play a game.
Listen, man, it makes a bigger difference. It makes a bigger difference that you letting out. Like in a couple of months when all the Terrans figure out exactly what the right orientation was.
Actually, Sal, can I tell you what every Terran player should, as the person who understood back in 2016 how good the Blink DTs were, and specifically for run bys, do you want me to just solve this whole problem? I can give you the shortcut that'll take Terran players another 5.5 years to figure out. You literally just build your bunker or supply depots in a little bit of surface area covering your planetary. That's all you had to do.
That is a novel idea.
I'm sure. Turrets too.
No, you're right. I'm sure that none of the Terrans who play this video game thought that surrounding the building with other buildings was the way to deal with it.
Look,
you're correct.
I understand, Sal. I also was surprised at how long it took Terran players to figure things out. But
it's amazing. You're right. I haven't literally watched Gabe sit there and try and figure out how he can arrange his buildings only for the DTs to show up in the cracks in between anyway and still one-shot his fucking PF. It's not happening, bro.
Come on, Sal. Do you really think Gabe is so bad that he wouldn't realize how to do a full wall?
Gabe is tilted as anyone else at the fucking state of the DT pre-patch. Like, it makes a difference.
That's actually true. That's a fair point. When Gabe is upset with something, it is truly a sign that something's wrong.
I mean, everybody fucking hated it, but it's just like the list of things everyone cared about was much greater than the DT blink, because every single Terran hates the fucking TVP late game so much that if they're at that phase, they just blame themselves for showing up there and not all-inning on 5 racks instead. Like,
okay.
If you're at the point that your PF is sniped, the Terrans are like, yeah, I guess it's my fault. I'm an idiot. I should have tried to kill you on 3 base instead. Whoops.
No, you're right. We'll see in about like 3 or 4 months when DreamHacks and everything kick back off, who is actually still going for these DT run bys and who's just like, no, it's just can't do it anymore.
I mean, it's gonna be played less. I'm telling you, the Terrans will figure out how many units they need, and then the PF won't die anymore. It's gonna happen.
Okay, I'm waiting for that day.
Okay.
So to answer your question, very contentious. There's a lot of heat in the air about this Dark Templar change.
I just never what else we would have to defend. It's like you guys didn't actually do it wasn't that bad.
What before?
I just never thought that it would be like the race that got nerfed. That would be like.
And it's just a quality of life thing. It just now it doesn't feel like you have nothing you can do. It just feels like you have something you can do. As before, where it really felt like it was like, oh, they're the DTs, and then there goes my CC. Now it's like maybe you can do something. Maybe they'll tweak the number. Maybe it needs to be longer on the delay. But like obviously, like it affects more than just.
I was like, did you give the crab a hat? And then I realized they were books. All right.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't really matter that much. I mean, we'll see what ends up happening. Like, it's, you know, even if it's not possible to defend it, like, I think that the idea is supposed to be that it's defensible. Whereas I don't think it was pre-patch. I just don't. I think that the amount of supply you have to waste putting over top of a PF and the DT user can just choose to not have DTs is like, it just made it so you were just more willing to just have a spare CC and then just land that.
I think I did trigger Cell now because I've just been saying okay, and he keeps going now.
Oh, okay. Well, we're at that phase in the conversation. That's fine.
sorry. I don't mean to be rude. I see that Apop and Neuro are getting bored. Otherwise, I will happily debate this with you on another stream.
No, that's fine.
What? I'm not bored. I'm doing homework.
I'm answering text messages. This is great for me. I'm getting some business work done.
Apop, the mid is missing, by the way.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You might be getting ganked.
Yep, I'm gonna. I am very curious to see. I did not think of the patch as a Zerg player again of the patch notes. That one was like the least like. Oh wow, that seems like that's going to do anything at all. But I don't play Terran. I don't play Protoss. So happy to see that there's some debates going on, and that apparently it's a wide variety of whether or not it's useful. We can move on to the second part of that question, though. feardragon, any plans to play StarCraft 2 with your nose or something, I guess? I don't know. This was only directed at you. So this is just your question.
I'm trying to figure out if I can play with my brain, but, we'll see.
The whole world.
You're going to play with your brain?
Only your brain.
Yes.
You're going to control it.
Alpha, gamma, beta, delta rays. Oh my god. The full screen. Yeah. I have a brain reader, brain scanner. So it's really hard, apparently. Fluent learning. Apparently you need a degree or something to understand this stuff. So it hasn't been going well.
Well, the way that it works for measuring the electrical signals is it's only on the surface of the skull, which lacks precision of which actual part inside the brain that is firing. It's more of the peripheral evidence that you have to read. So I could see why that would be difficult. You could get an fMRI, but that would be very expensive to do. fMRI kind of scanning integration with StarCraft. But it would be cool.
Yeah. I've mostly just been trying to use it as a map to a certain hotkey or something. One or two hotkeys. If my alpha waves spike, it'll left click. If my gamma spikes, it'll A move or something.
How do you control those specific, how does that even work? How do you elicit more of a spike in one than the other? I don't understand how that even works.
Well, alpha waves, you just think about bashing stuff and being really strong, and gamma waves.
Okay. I was there whoa, really? Whoa.
Meditative stuff and everything. Yeah, it's a whole interesting science area that I've been reading a lot of papers on and not understanding much.
Well, interesting. I am interested to see how that works out and look forward to the day when you can play with just your brain. That's the only Patreon question we got. Once again, guys, if you want to support the Pylon Show, the best way you can do so is patreon.com/thepylonshow. A big thank you to everybody and to the guests, of course, Ravi, Neuro, UpATree, Mr. Sal. Thank you guys so much for joining me and for lending me your wisdom so that I can truly understand what rank each of these units have.
Love you, Twitch chat. Thanks for
Much
the
love
invite.
to you all.
Y'all are great.
Remember to make more of the good units and less of the bad units.
Build it if
Fantastic.
it's
From everybody here at the Pylon Show, thank you all so much, and we will see you in the next one. Take care, everybody.